Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and we're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app and on YouTube. It feels like spring this morning. There's some light rain out there that's cleaning up everything, and we have showers or periods of drizzle with us for the day. A high of 7 degrees in Winnipeg today. So welcome to the show. The morning show's on until 8:37. If you have any issue on your wet commute, you can always call us at 788-3093. And just so you don't accuse us of perimeter-itis, good morning, Brandon. Mix of sun and cloud for you, and today a chance of rain continuing for you as well. A high of 6 degrees in Brandon, and up north in Thompson, mainly cloudy, and a high of 4 degrees. Let's say good morning to the team that's on the show today. So that's Corey Funk, who directs the program, and we'll be covering on-air the commute. Good morning to Mr. Abby Adeyemi, who's our senior technician and behind the controls of the show. Abby covers weather on air as well. And good morning to Mr. Brad Lillies, who is our YouTube producer, waving hello to you on YouTube. All right, Heather Wells is here as well. 2 minutes to 6 o'clock. She has our headlines. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, concerns about Donald Trump, trade, and the economy are top of mind during this federal election campaign. A coalition of environmental organizations worries the environment is being ignored. All three of Canada's most popular political parties have promised not to revive the carbon tax. Laura Cameron at Manitoba's Climate Action Team says climate change and cost of living are not mutually exclusive. A Manitoba newspaper editor is using the power of persuasion to combat a deadly measles outbreak in the U.S. John Dewick, editor of the Mennonite Post, a paper based in Steinbach, paid a visit last month to the Mennonite community in Texas, where a measles outbreak is responsible for the deaths of 2 unvaccinated children. We'll hear that story in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
We've got a fun, quirky story to open the show. So, Travis Kelce, NFL superstar, also known, yes, as Taylor Swift's boyfriend. However, Travis Kelce is apparently painted on a mural on the side of a church in Winnipeg. Well, not technically, but it sure looks like him. And it's getting a lot of attention online. So we're going to start with that story, and we'll find out more about it. In addition, we're going to talk to Nancy Wilson. Why am I naming her? Because she's the CEO of something new, the Canadian Women's Chamber of Commerce. We're going to hear more about what members want to hear around tariffs. Stay with us.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
If you won millions in the lottery, what would you do? I mean, these days, put a down payment down on a house? The new film, The Ballad of Wallace Island, is about a lottery winner who decides to use his money to get his favorite band back together.
I'm so sorry, I'm not really used to having guests.
The guy behind the film, Tim Key, will be here to tell you what inspired it. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. U.S. President Donald Trump's new tariffs are now in effect. He calls the levies explosive. Trump says they will boost America's economy. Many countries around the world are feeling the pressure. The CBC's Katie Nicholson joins me now from Washington. And Katie, what are we hearing from Donald Trump now that these new tariffs are in effect?
Well, President Trump was defiant last night, just hours before these tariffs kicked in, telling an audience of mostly Republicans that they were legendary and his plan will work.
I know what the hell I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. These countries are calling us up, kissing. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything.
Trump also said he will soon be announcing a major tariff on pharmaceuticals, and he said those companies would then rush back to the U.S. So important to consider, outside of the U.S., China, India, and there are several European countries who are major players in the pharmaceuticals industry. So expect this to touch off more disruption in this trade war. Now, Trump's harshest words are reserved for China, we predicted would eventually make a deal. China, of course, now subject to that eye-popping 104% tariff, after Trump added another 50% to tariffs he'd already had on the table. Now, China, equally defiant, says it will not back down to bullying and it will announce its own slew of countermeasures. And remember, its own 34% tariff on U.S. goods is going to kick in at 12:01 a.m. Thursday.
Tell us about some of the other reaction.
Well, unsurprisingly, Asian markets continue down. The main stocks across Europe in a slump, the FTSE in London down too. Just consider this. Apple makes most of its hardware in China, where that 104% tariff kicked in. About half of Nike sneakers, they're made in Vietnam, subject now to a 46% levy. Nike and Apple have seen their stocks steeply fall over the last little while. So when Wall Street opens, you're going to see more of how this plays out in American trading and among American companies.
Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Katie Nicholson in Washington. Canada is not being directly slapped with any new U.S. tariffs today, but it is bringing in some of its own retaliatory tariffs in a response to the new duty on Canadian automobiles. Canada is imposing its own 25% tariff. It will apply to any U.S.-made vehicles that do not comply with the new NAFTA. And vehicles that do comply will also face tariffs on their non-Canadian or non-Mexican components. Canada's only rice mill is also trying to figure out how to cope. Windsor, Ontario's Dainty Foods is facing tariffs from both sides of the border. As Jennifer LaGrassa tells us, the future of the 142-year-old company is in question.
In Dainty Foods' Windsor facility, a machine shoots rice into a pouch. The Canadian company is trying to maintain business as usual, though for CEO James Maitland, the last few months have been anything but, thanks to tariffs.
A lot of stress, high cortisol, a little bit of weight gain, a lot of lack of sleep.
Maitland oversees Canada's only rice mill, which cleans and processes the grain, a majority of which is imported from the United States. Now, because of Canada's counter tariffs, Dainty Foods is paying 25% more.
We want to continue importing U.S. rice.
To do that, they're filing an exemption with the Canadian government. Without it, they say their plans for future growth are on pause. That includes a $40 million facility in the United States. In an email, a Finance Canada official said they have received exemption requests and are processing them. They wouldn't say how many or how long it could take for applications to be approved.
We want to hear from businesses.
Eric Kuzmarchuk is the incumbent Liberal candidate for Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore.
To make sure we protect them as much as possible, but also delivering a hard and fast counterpunch to the Americans.
Finance Canada says there are other supports businesses can apply for, like the Duties Relief Program and the Duty Drawback Program. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor, Ontario.
Hundreds of thousands of jobs in Asia rely on exports to the United States. Those goods are now facing significant tariffs. The economic growth and wealth of many countries in that part of the world hang in the balance. The CBC's Salima Shivji has more from Mumbai.
As Donald Trump's punishing tariffs came into effect, the markets in Asia plunged yet again, the panic growing, particularly in countries in Southeast Asia, which had positioned themselves as manufacturing alternatives to China. At this garment factory in Vietnam's largest city, the sewing continues apace, even if worries are everywhere. Vietnam has been hit with one of the highest tariff rates, a whopping 46%, far worse than anyone anticipated. In neighboring Cambodia, it's 49%. The U.S., their largest trading partner, now fickle and unpredictable. Desperate pleas for a delay and more negotiations from Vietnam's prime minister were brushed aside. I'm so worried about losing my job, I can't eat or sleep, says this garment factory worker in Ho Chi Minh City. How will I support my children? The pain on the ground is also being felt in India, which now has a 26% tariff slapped on goods like loose diamonds entering the U.S. A massive industry, with many jobs now at stake as production slows, says Anup Mehta of Bharat Diamond Bourse.
In the cutting and polishing industry of diamonds, we are employing roughly 1 million people.
He's looking for some hope anywhere.
Situation, yes, it's difficult today. It can only improve, can't get worse.
Even if it's uncertain exactly how it will get better. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
Officials in the Dominican Republic say it is too soon to understand why the roof collapsed on a nightclub on Monday. Rescue crews have been working through the night to try to find survivors. Families have gathered outside the Jet Set nightclub looking for information about their loved ones. At least 98 people are confirmed dead. 106 others have been injured. The nightclub was popular for its Monday night merengue. Athletes and politicians were in the crowd. Liberal leader Mark Carney continues his tour of Western Canada, first BC and now Alberta, a province known for its bona fide blue political stripes. But as Karina Roman reports, Liberal supporters are hopeful Carney will be the person to change that, at least a little.
I thought I was in Calgary. This is amazing.
Liberal leader Mark Carney has likely heard the jokes about how lonely it can be to be Team Red in Calgary. For the most part, this is a conservative blue town in a conservative province. But the Liberals are hoping to break through past the one seat they have here in Calgary. Priti O'Brien-Martin is running for the Liberals in Calgary East. The daughter of the late longtime Conservative MP Deepak O'Brien says her dad taught her to not blindly follow a party, but instead to look for a leader who inspires her.
And so now I was inspired by Mr. Mark Carney as our Prime Minister, and so I'm following him. So my dad would be proud.
With rumblings of growing Western alienation and threats that another federal Liberal government could mean a separation referendum for Alberta, Carney has his work cut out for him as he tries to woo Western voters. But supporter Chantal Valliere says she believes more Albertans will give him a chance.
People are realizing that, okay, maybe we didn't like Trudeau, but maybe we just needed a fresh new face, someone who could bring new ideas.
The rally filled the room to its 1,000-person capacity. Another estimated 1,000 people were outside listening to Carney on loudspeakers. That might pale in comparison to the 10,000 plus at the Conservative rally in Edmonton 2 nights ago. But Liberals in this crowd say they felt a little less lonely than usual. Karina Roman, CBC News, Calgary.
After Carney wraps up his Calgary events this morning, he heads to Saskatoon. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is promising a new tough-on-crime law. He unveiled it this morning on social media.
Anyone convicted of 3 serious offenses will have no chance at bail, probation, parole, or house arrest. Instead, such offenders will get a minimum of 10 years and up to a life sentence in prison.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh and Grand Chief Stuart Phillip met in Burnaby, BC last night.
It's just how important for me as a national leader it is to always center as a part of our responsibility at the national level, fighting for justice for Indigenous people. I think it's very important. I think it's fundamental to building a fairer Canada.
Singh is making an announcement in Vancouver this morning. He will attend the First Nations Summit before traveling to Saskatoon. His campaign event tonight will be just a few hours after Carney's. Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet says he is confident he'll hold on to his seat in this election.
I'm pretty safe in my riding, but that belongs to those who will vote.
He's campaigning hard today with 3 separate media availabilities in Quebec. The Green Party co-leaders are starting their day in Ottawa. Then Elizabeth May is starting a tour from Montreal to Moncton. She'll be taking the train. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report News Anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, good rainy morning, everyone. We've got some fresh rain out there. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We are live in downtown Winnipeg, and you're on CBC. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. It is in Winnipeg, right around 1 degree. We'll update your forecast for all over Manitoba in just a moment. And then this hour, we've got a couple of stories that, one of them is going to make you smile. Why is a mural on the side of a Winnipeg church out in Transcona catching the eye of some sports superstars? Well, because it looks like Travis Kelce. It's not supposed to be the NFLer. It's supposed to be Jesus. So we're going to find out how this is getting some attention, and we're going to talk to the pastor of the church. So stay tuned. That's coming up first. In addition, this hour on the program, we will be talking about what you just heard a lot about on World Report. U.S. President Donald Trump's whopping total of 104% tariffs on some Chinese goods. What does that mean? We're going to walk through our Canadian perspective on this. So stay tuned. In addition, we're going to touch base with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, the Women's Chamber of Commerce in this country, to find out what they are talking about at their level in terms of all the tariffs and our trading relationships. Right now, let's go to Heather Welsh. She has more Manitoba News headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba Public Insurance says distracted driving is on the rise. Data shows more license suspensions were issued in 2024 than in any of the previous 5 years. April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month, and Winnipeg police say they are cracking down. We'll hear more. And as Winnipeg gets set for whiteout street parties again, downtown businesses are just as excited as Jets fans. At Rudy's Eat and Drink on Graham, they have high hopes for what a lengthy postseason run could bring. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 6:30.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
That story, Abby, you said you've been seeing people out and about with their phones when they're driving.
I know. Most of the vehicles now have like in Bluetooth devices that would plug with your phone. Yeah. I don't get it when people still get to hold the phones to their ears and like so distracted while driving.
Are you seeing that? Like people just holding the physical phone like in full conversation?
Yeah, like physical phone, having that conversation, and I just freak out when I see that. I'm like, stop it, put it away.
I know. Don't do it. Not worth it.
Because that distraction is just there. You're not focusing on the road once you're listening and holding something.
Mike Arsenault actually has been working on the stats around this and has a full story for us coming up in addition to what we'll hear in the news as well. So that's second hour. You are here to talk about this spring start to our day with the rain.
Yes, it's going to be a damp one across the province today. We're looking at cloudy skies already in some parts of the region and the chance of rain or drizzle, or some regions will even see freezing rain this morning. The north will be experiencing more like colder temperatures, some sunny breaks here and there. Conditions in Winnipeg, we're seeing temperatures hover around 1 and 0. Light rain falling across the area at this time. Expect this off and on showers with some light drizzle throughout the day. It stays cloudy and damp, and high will be around 7. It gets breezy at some time, but it's just going to be light, just enough for you to notice it. And similar conditions we're seeing in other parts of the southern region, except Dauphin having mist at this time. So if you're on the road, take it easy. So in summary, Winnipeg sits in the middle, more like, have that damp and cool day and light rain also in the forecast.
I totally lied to everyone yesterday. Hi, Cray Funk. How you doing?
Good. Hi.
I totally lied to everyone. Like all morning. What was I doing? I was like, sunny and 8. Yeah. It's going to be so sunny. It's going to be warm. And then I left work at 1 o'clock or so, and I was just like, it's cold out here. Like yesterday it was really felt like really kind of like chilly, and the sun really barely made an appearance.
Yeah, it was no fun.
So sorry, listeners. Things shifted after our show.
It happens. The weather pattern just changes its direction and goes, you know what, I'm just going to bring some cloudy conditions in, and the wind direction is just going to switch from the west to the east.
Surprise! So hopefully no surprises today. Hopefully they'll just be there.
It's going to be a damp one. We can't miss that one.
Fair enough. Well, I won't talk about sun. All right, Corey Funk, the commute.
So far things are pretty clear. Roads are wet, but not icy, so I'll take that. But if you do see something going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, football star Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs in the NFL might have found an unlikely doppelganger. His twin is here in Winnipeg. Have a listen to this.
We also got this from the New Heights page of Reddit. This church mural in my neighborhood looks oddly familiar. Why? I've never seen Jesus look like this.
What? Like you?
I've never seen
How did they do this? Somebody painted this in your image. Looks like Travis Kelce.
No, it is not.
If you had long, wavy hair, this would be exactly what this picture would look like. So you're Jesus Christ. Travis, would you ever do your hair like this? This is a good look. This is like an 80s Travis Kelce right here.
So that's a clip from the Kansas City Chiefs tight end speaking with his brother, Jason Kelce, on the latest episode of the Kelce podcast. It's called New Heights. Now, the mural they're talking about is of Jesus on the Tabor Baptist Church out in Transcona here in Winnipeg. But fans can't help but see the uncanny resemblance between Travis Kelce and the mural. Now, if you're on Facebook this morning, Brad's going to roll some photos for us, on YouTube rather. Brad's going to be rolling some photos in our stream kind of side by side so you can really lean in and have a look. But Rod Giesbrick's up early and on the line. He's the church's pastor. And good morning to you.
Good morning, Marcy.
So what was your reaction when you first heard the Kelce brothers were talking about your church and this piece of art on the side of the church?
Well, I've known the mural's been there for a number of years, so actually caught me totally off guard that someone down in Kansas City knew about a mural in Transcona.
And what do you think of them talking about the resemblance here?
Well, I can tell you for sure he was not an inspiration. Our artist is a Winnipeg fellow named Charlie Johnson, and he's painted a number of images of Jesus, and this was another example of his work. We didn't tell him to make it look like anyone. This was his mental concept of what Jesus may have looked like in his time. So I give the credit to Charlie for what it looks like, and I guess God gets the credit for what Travis looks like.
Well put. Do you see the resemblance? I mean, it's pretty hard to miss.
Well, there's certainly, yes. I don't think we were thinking NFL, but yeah, I guess Travis wanted to look like Tabor, so I guess he's going to grow his hair next.
How does it feel for the church to be getting this much attention, which I hope has mostly been positive?
Oh, it causes lots of humor. I've had family members call me. I'm traveling right now, and they're just saying, "Hey, how does this happen?" And I said, "I have no idea." But yes, it's brought many smiles onto our faces.
The mural is, you mentioned the artist, but why did you want to get it in the first place? And tell me a little bit about that, because it really is the full wall of one side of the church outside.
Yeah. Well, a number of years ago, we had another mural of Jesus using some different artistic effects, and that still exists in the back of the building. We have another mural there of a woman we call the worshiper, and those artistic qualities are found in her. But the front of the building got painted over during a time of transition, and when I returned, needed a new mural with a new theme, and so I came up with the idea of trying to answer questions that churches often try to express. Is there truths about God that appear to be incompatible? And how do you understand or how do you believe things that you seem to be incompatible? And so we looked at physics and we looked at light. And as we all know, light is both a wave and a particle, though it can't be, but it is. And so we use that idea of light to be communicated through the mural. So the mural has these waves on it, and the quality of the stucco is very commercial grade. So if you stand at a certain angle, the whole mural turns into particles. So the mural is saying there's truths we hold about God that appear to be incompatible, but they're true, just like we do that in physics. So that's the message of the mural.
And for people that haven't seen the images of this, I mean, the head of Jesus is sort of up in the peak of the building, and then as you're describing, it sort of floats away, and it looks almost cloudy. The hands are outstretched, and then there's the face, which some say looks like Travis Kelce. Did you know who he was? Are you a football fan or Taylor Swift fan, or it's kind of hard to escape these folks?
Obviously, I like some of Taylor's songs, but I'm not really a pop culture genius. I like football, so I knew that, there's this guy catching footballs down in Kansas City. I'm not a Kansas City fan, so he's just one of many wonderful players that are gifted in the NFL to me.
People might know, of course, there's a Winnipeg connection because he was roommates with Zach Collaros of the Bombers back in the day in the States, because Zach's American, right? So, yeah, and I don't know whether or not that is why this mural came to the attention in the first place of the Kelce brothers or not. But as you said, you have no idea, right?
No, I have not met Zach even, so I don't know where he's been traveling in Transcona. Maybe he went to Dull down the street.
Have you had a service since this all came to light?
No, I'm traveling right now, and so it's funny. The first day I left on vacation, I get this phone call telling me what's all happening. Of course, I'm oblivious, and it was so funny to know. I think at that time it was something like 400,000 views. I have no idea how many people have looked at the podcast by now.
Your churches, are you getting any calls? Are you getting any attention on your social media pages as you have them?
No, we do have, some basic Facebook and things. And no, we haven't had anybody calling us, patting us on the back or anything else for that matter.
Yeah, wild. Well, I wonder what your first service will be back, what it will be like for you. Thank you so much, Rod, for being a good sport, for being up early and for talking to us about this. We really appreciate it.
Great. Have a great day, Marcy.
Yeah, you as well. That's Rod Giesbrecht. Bye-bye. He's Tabor Baptist Church's pastor, and if you want to check out the images, you will find them online.
Your neighborhood, your community, your country, your world, your news that matters, news that belongs to you. Your World Tonight, every night, 7 days a week on CBC Radio 1, on demand on the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
6:22 is the time, 1 degree the temperature. Abby, I know you're a church-going man, and I grew up going to church, and I have to say there's a mural in Holy Eucharist Church. This is in Winnipeg on Watt Street, and I used to go there growing up, and I would stare at it, because, you know, when you're a kid, you're in the pew, and you're shifting, and you're listening, but you're looking around, and so I would stare at this mural, and it's a whole bunch of faces in the mural, but one of the faces looks exactly like my father.
Oh.
Like if I put them side by side, it's the same as the Kelsey thing we just talked about. Looks exactly like my dad. I think I should go there and capture it and do a side by side.
Please do. And I might want to take you back a few months back about a story I shared with you some time ago. Remember when I played a role in a play in church? There was a kind of painting of that show. And I think if that building still stands, they would.
There's a painting of you as baby Jesus?
Yeah.
So for those of you who missed this is the short notes listeners on this. We were talking around Christmas time about pageants, about things you did, about what you memories as a kid. And Abby came up with this story and memory that he in the pageant was baby Jesus. But then he was baby Jesus for like a lot of years. So they actually painted
so
you?
If that building stays for like 100 years plus, there may be a resemblance of me somewhere, like a baby Jesus on the wall.
Oh, we're going on a mission to get that, I'm telling you. 6:23 a.m. is the time right now. We're in a Friday mood on a Wednesday morning. It's wet out there, and as I mentioned, 1 degree. In Brandon, partly cloudy, -1. Thompson's mostly cloudy and -3. Well, let's return to more serious matters now. As party leaders crisscross the country, they're talking about how to grow the economy, of course. The threat of tariffs adds a new dimension to their pitches. Now, one group listening closely is the Canadian Women's Chamber of Commerce. Nancy Wilson is founder and CEO and with us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, I mentioned earlier in the show, you're a relatively new organization, launched in 2018. Tell us, before we talk about the campaign, about the focus you have through the Canadian Women's Chamber.
The Canadian Women's Chamber of Commerce represents and advocates for women and gender-diverse entrepreneurs and self-employed individuals across the country. So we're the first and only Chamber of Commerce that specifically represents the economic interests, of this group, which totals over 1.2 million people.
What are some of the unique concerns for your members, and what are you asking on the campaign trail?
So there's a variety of unique challenges and barriers that women entrepreneurs face. One of the most tangible and significant is lack of access to capital. So women own or co-own 36% of all businesses across Canada, but receive only 4% of venture capital investment in a good year. In terms of debt financing, around 22% of women business owners' bank loans are rejected on average. For the general population, the rejection rate is more around 15%. So with the lack of access to capital, many women-owned businesses don't have the same ability to withstand the economic turmoil and uncertainty that we're seeing right now. And what is really concerning is that there, so far, has been no discussion of women, period, but certainly no discussion of women business owners in this election, in this campaign. There's simply been no mention. And, that's concerning since women represent 50% of the population. But it's also concerning when we have this looming trade war and the candidates are so focused on talking about how we can build a Canadian economy that can stand up to this economic crisis. And women business owners contribute $150 billion to the Canadian economy. And studies have shown that advancing gender equality could add another $150 billion to the economy. And yet we're completely left out of the conversation.
Why do you think that that is so? Because especially on the capital front, I mean, a good business idea is a good business idea. It shouldn't matter if it's a man or woman or who's putting it forth. But the stats continue to bear out that women aren't supported in that way. What do you think that's about?
The only thing that I can really think of is, right now at least, there seems to be a real rollback on gender equity, a rollback on this focus on DEI and gender and racial equity. There just seems to be this sense that focus on those issues are extraneous, that they're just not as important as other issues. The current cabinet does not have a standalone minister for the Department of Women and Gender Equality. That minister has been eliminated. It does not have a standalone minister for the Ministry of Disabilities and Diversity and Inclusion.
Yeah, last night I was actually moderating an accessibility event and debate in Winnipeg, and that was pointed out that minister is not there anymore either.
Yeah, it's shocking to me, and I think these we have to really question what kind of a country do we want in the future? What kind of a country do we want to stand up to what's happening in the U.S. and how do we want to differentiate ourselves? And I think, policies that advance gender and racial and economic equity are essential to economic growth. And I think that they're essential to what Canada is all about. And issues of DEI, disability, racial, and gender equity cannot be set aside to focus on, quote unquote, more important things during an election or a crisis of any kind. This hurts people. This hurts our economy. And I want to hear the candidates start recognizing that, start talking about that.
Nancy, thank you very much for your time this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
That is Nancy Wilson, the founder and CEO of the Canadian Women's Chamber of Commerce, with us live here on CBC. Well, speaking of trying to get on the table what you would like candidates to be talking about, I'm inviting you to join us tomorrow. We're moving around to different ridings, and tomorrow we're in Winnipeg West. And if you want to join us for our live conversation there, I can confirm to you that we're going to be at the Tim Hortons at 3890 Grant Avenue. The whole show's there from 6 to 8:30. We have invited all the candidates. There are 4 running in that riding to join us and have an interview with me and take questions should there be relevant questions from people in the room that want to pose them from that riding. And we have confirmed the Conservative incumbent will be joining us, Marty Morantz, at 7:40, and Doug Elfson, who is running for the Liberal Party of Canada, will be joining us at 8:10. So they'll be live on location with us. And if you want to be as well, we'll see you tomorrow. If you can't be there and you want to ask a question, and if that's your riding, 788-3205, 788-3205. Business news is coming up, and today we're going to hear more about how markets fell for the 4th day in a row yesterday. You can guess why, but we won't have to guess. We'll have analysis from Crystal Ramlakan after your news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 1 degree. It is a damp day for Wednesday in this city. Showers or periods of drizzle, a high today of 7. April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month, and Winnipeg police are cracking down. Dedicated officers are camping out on street corners looking for drivers using their cell phones. They say even glancing at your phone at a stoplight is against the law. Luna Zuniga knows the potential costs of distracted driving. She is still struggling to recover from multiple fractures and injuries after being hit last year.
Thinking about all those drivers who continue to drive, they're able to go to work, they're able to go and hang out with friends, and again, I'm stuck looking out a window.
The driver who hit Zuniga was later charged with driving carelessly. Manitoba Public Insurance says distracted driving causes more fatalities in this province than impaired driving. A coalition of Manitoba environmental organizations says it is disappointed Manitoba's backing away from one of its climate change mitigation goals. Premier Wab Kinew now suggests Manitoba Hydro may not be able to wean itself off fossil fuels by 2035. Kinew says the province has to meet its own electricity needs. That includes building a new fuel-burning generating station that might run on fossil fuels. Laura Cameron is a director at Manitoba's Climate Action Team.
It's troubling. We would like to see the province looking at ways to reduce peak demand. You know, that thermal generating station is ultimately aimed at meeting that peak demand when we're in the coldest days of the winter. And, you know, there are other ways that we can reduce the peak on the energy efficiency side.
The proposed new fuel-burning generating station is expected to cost Hydro $1.4 billion. Well, Asian stock markets fell in trading today after the latest American tariffs kicked in. The Nikkei index in Tokyo dropped 4%. U.S. President Donald Trump bragging about the new tariffs at a Republican black-tie dinner last night in Washington.
Right now, China's paying a 104% tariff. Think of it, 104%.
But Trump reassured the crowd his tariff strategy will pay off, insisting China will negotiate new trade conditions. The new tariffs include a 46% levy on imports from Vietnam to the U.S., 25% on South Korean goods, and 20% on imports from the European Union. Now, Liberal leader Mark Carney held a rally in Calgary last night, taking aim at Donald Trump, saying Trump's aim is to divide and conquer. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was in Sault Ste. Marie speaking about the large turnout for his rallies.
I think that the reason why we've attracted these record-breaking crowds is people have hope again. People have hope. The young people have hope that soon they'll be able to afford a home and start a family and have kids and give their parents some grandkids.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh was in Burnaby, where he got the endorsement of a prominent Indigenous chief in that province. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. A Manitoba newspaper editor is using the power of persuasion to combat a deadly measles outbreak in the U.S. John Dewick is the editor of the Mennonite Post. It is a Low German periodical based in Steinbach with readers as far away as South America. He paid a visit last month to the Mennonite community in Texas, where a measles outbreak is responsible for the deaths of 2 unvaccinated children. During his visit, he encouraged people to get their children vaccinated. He says the key is not to push or be judgmental, but to listen.
If you are going to approach these communities, you have to understand them in a way that why they are making these decisions.
In addition to the Texas outbreak, more than 600 measles cases have been reported in Ontario. Manitoba has had a total of 10 confirmed or probable cases so far this year. Well, excitement for the NHL playoffs is building in Winnipeg. Bringing the party back to downtown Winnipeg and the return of the Whiteout Street Party's details were announced yesterday. And like fans, downtown businesses hope it'll be a long run. At Rudy's Eat and Drink, they expect to be packed on game days. General Manager Mackenzie Robb hopes the Jets play all the way into patio season.
It's been electric just watching them all season. They've been doing so well. To see that come to a head and actually get that home advantage for the playoffs was always something we were looking forward to. And obviously the implications for our business are fantastic, and we're really excited to get things going.
Tickets for the Whiteout Street Parties go on sale starting April 15th, and the NHL says the puck drops on the postseason April 19th. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, Heather, thank you.
Thank you.
Heather Wells is live each and every morning in our news center. And then we're in here in our CBC studio, and in the control room, Mr. Avi Adeyemi with our regional forecast on CBC.
Good morning once again. We're looking at temperatures around -3 and 0 in most of the regions, except Churchill still stuck at -24 with that freezing fog this morning. Across the province, we'll be seeing a mix of cloudy skies, drizzle, light rain in the south with cooler and more winter-like conditions as you travel further north. In Winnipeg, it's 1 at this time. We have light rain outside. Expect cloudy skies, off and on showers throughout the day with a high close to 7. Some areas would get to 8 in the Winnipeg area. Temperatures tonight will dip to 0, and then we'll see some fog patches develop overnight into tomorrow morning. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region. Temperatures hovering around -1 and 0. Cloudy. We do have the slight chance of light showers this morning for that region. Temperatures for Morden, Morris, Winkler, Altoona, all the way down to the U.S. border will get to 10 degrees today. Now we head west to Brandon, where we're seeing temperatures around 0 also. It will be a mix of sunny conditions, some cloud rolling, a slim chance of showers, or even some flurries would pop up here and there. Highs will be around 6 degrees. In the Parkland region, we're looking at Dauphin experiencing misty conditions at this time. Areas around Dauphin will also be feeling at that misty conditions with temperatures around 0. There's a chance of rain or even some flurries in the forecast this morning, followed by some sunshine later. We'll see highs around 3 degrees for folks in Dauphin. In the Interlake region, Gimli is cloudy at this time, 0 degrees. We are at showers and drizzle spotted here and there. High will be around 4. Up north in the powerful influence surrounding areas, we're seeing temperatures around -1 at this time. We do have cloudy conditions there, a slim chance of showers in the forecast, highs of 4 degrees for that region. In Thompson, -3, high around 4 degrees also for folks in Thompson. And then in Churchill, it's cold, -24. Freezing fog we have there. It will get sunny, but it's not going to really warm things up for folks in Churchill this morning. So in summary, the southern part cooler, light rain and fog patches here and there, and Winnipeg sitting at 1 at this
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Look how hard Abby works. He does all that information, and then what have you got?
Wow. I know.
I'm cheeky today.
Yeah. You know, if it was slippery outside, I'd be working super hard.
The commute's pretty quiet, though, right?
Yeah,
Which is good.
The commute is very quiet. Haven't heard any major issues. We are kind of on the beginning of construction season, though. I know we got a call yesterday, for example, about Sargent between about Valor and Erin is closed for construction until April 22nd. And that's both ways. So you can't make your way down Sargent in that part. So that could be throwing people off. And if there's any other construction you would like to let me know about that's kind of throwing your commute off a little bit, I'm sure there's more projects starting up. Give me a call on the CBC commuter line or any potholes, anything like that. Let me know. That number to call, 204-788-3093. I promise I'm still working hard on it.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Corey Funk in for traffic this morning, also our show director. Time right now is 21 minutes to 7 o'clock on your Wednesday morning. Let's get to business news. Crystalie Ramlakan joins us. Hello, Crystalie.
Hi, good morning, Marcy.
So let's start with markets. They did fall for the 4th day in a row yesterday. Can you break down specifically, what we're seeing?
Yeah, so North American markets saw more losses, and it was a dramatic turnaround from the rally that started the day. So markets have been falling since last Thursday, as we know, as they react to President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs on a wide swath of countries. And market watchers are now eyeing the growing possibility of a recession. So Trump ramped up tariffs on imports from China to 104%. And this morning, China has announced even more retaliatory tariffs. And U.S. stock future indexes have turned sharply lower after that news. And, Wall Street CEOs are speaking out against these tariffs. J.P. Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon says the faster the trade disputes are resolved, the better. So he is warning that tariffs will slow growth. The head of BlackRock says most of the CEOs he's talking to think a recession is already here. And Larry Fink says he personally believes tariffs will fan inflation, keeping interest rates elevated, which is the opposite of what Trump has been calling for. He wants the Fed to lower interest rates. And even some usual Trump champions are grumbling. So hedge fund manager Bill Ackman has suggested the president call a 90-day timeout on tariffs, warning that a trade war will damage the business reputation of the U.S. and could end in a, quote, self-induced economic nuclear winter. And we're going to hear more from Wall Street later later this week, JP Morgan, BlackRock, and Wells Fargo are due to announce their latest earnings on Friday.
I don't know about you, but I want to rent all the movies about all the different economic, moments in the past. Like I'm like, oh, maybe this weekend I should watch The Big Short, and but then maybe I shouldn't. Let's talk about some wireless customers. So they're going to face a new fee while using older devices. What's this about?
So Rogers customers using older 2G and 3G networks will face a monthly charge of $3 starting next month. So Rogers is winding down its 3G network on July 31st in order to enhance its LTE and 5G networks. So the company says as technology improves, older equipment becomes outdated and requires decommissioning. So the company says the move will support customers using its legacy networks while recovering part of the costs associated with maintaining those systems. So Rogers says those whose cell phones use the older network may experience disruptions to calling, texting, or data before those functions stop working entirely. And Rogers isn't the first company to charge this kind of fee. TELUS has also announced a monthly $3 price increase for those still on 3G plans. But it says almost 98% of its customers are using 4G, LTE, or 5G networks. And Rogers says customers can avoid the charge by switching to a 4G or 5G device or by updating their settings or activating a new SIM card.
Now, before we move to your last story in markets, I just want to put a shout out because I'm curious who has the oldest cell phone in Manitoba.
And if they still have that little 2G up in the corner.
Yeah, or maybe they've got a brick phone. Maybe they're back. Those won't be around anymore from the 80s. But some of the flip phones from the 90s, they're out there. They're out there.
They are.
788-3205 if you think you have the oldest cell phone in Manitoba. All right, let's get back to serious matters. Tariff war. The tariff war is testing some Canadian companies, those that actually have U.S. names, right?
Yeah, that's right. So, despite branding themselves with nods to the U.S., Boston Pizza, New York Fries, Montana's, and California Sandwiches are all Canadian and have been working to ensure the public doesn't forget that. So some say the tariff war is putting consumer knowledge of their brand's ownership and heritage to the test. So while they insist their monikers are not in need of a change yet, as they're not seeing sales slide yet, they're taking any opportunity to share where their allegiances lie. So New York Fries says it's had to do a little pivoting. It says it's had to answer questions to consumers who may not understand it is a Canadian brand. So New York Fries became Canadian owned after an Ontario entrepreneur transplanted the concept from New York City in the 1980s. And Boston Pizza says most people know it's Canadian, but says it does feel for others because that wasn't always the case. So that pizza chain was founded in Edmonton in 1964 by a Greek sailor who wanted to visit Boston but started a restaurant with the city's name instead. And experts say sharing a company's story is always important, but has become even more crucial these days as shoppers look to support local. So rather than resorting to an expensive name change that would erase brand awareness, the best strategy may be some clever marketing. And that's what Montana's, which first opened in Oakville, Ontario in 1995, is doing. So the company is posting on social media that it is made up of locally owned and operated locations overseen by Recipe Unlimited, which is a restaurant conglomerate based in Vaughan, Ontario.
The numbers now, what are the markets doing today?
So in Europe, stocks are plunging. Germany, the UK, and France are all down. In Asia right now, markets are mixed. So Japan is down. Shanghai and Hong Kong are both up. Oil is down $3.17 to $56.41 U.S. per barrel. Gold is up $79.20 to $3,061.90 U.S. per ounce. And the dollar is up just over a quarter of a cent to 70.4 cents U.S.
All right. Thanks a lot, Crystalie.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
That's Crystalie Ramlichan live with our business news. Well, it feels like spring today. Light drizzle, light rain always does it, and that's what we have in our current condition. It's going to continue for most of the day in Winnipeg. Showers or periods of drizzle. Our high will get to 7 degrees. And into tonight, we are expecting the rain and a few showers should end this evening, and then mainly cloudy overnight. Tomorrow, mainly cloudy once again, but clearing late afternoon and a high tomorrow of 9 degrees. Your current conditions are this. 1 in Winnipeg, or current temps rather. Brandon's partly cloudy, -1, and Thompson's mostly cloudy and -3. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC. Well, we have a bit of music for Winnipeg's Field Guide next on the show. Field Guide's reflecting on the highs and lows of the touring life in a new single. It seems glamorous, but think about it. It'd be kind of tough. It's called Life I Wanted on CBC.
Woke up with the daylight after a good day and a long night. I'm tired, but it's alright. I'm living again. Loading up the rental and trying to be gentle with my sister on the telephone. She's feeling down again. I got the life that I wanted, and I'll have some time in August. You're out of my sight, but you're sure on my mind. I just missed the pool hour, so I settled for a hot shower, a single cigarette and a happy hour all to myself. Tomorrow hit the highway, Denver, then an airplane, Calgary, then a time change, and I'll be back at home with you. I got the life that I wanted, and I'll have some time in August. You're out of my sight, you're sure on my mind, I promise. And when I'm away, I hope you don't feel like it's part-time, babe. Yeah, when I'm away, I hope you don't feel like it's part-time, babe. I got the life that I wanted, and I'll have some time in August. You're out of my sight, but you're sure on my mind. I promise. You're out of my sight, but you're sure on my mind. I promise.
Winnipeg's Field Guide, tunes called Life I Wanted on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube.
There's a lot of noise out there. What is real? What is false? CBC News is here for Canadians, sifting through the noise to help you make your best choice. Because this is your vote. Canada Votes 2025.
Next on the program, let's talk about tariffs. Today is a significant day in terms of the movement on tariffs. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration is slapping a whopping total now of 104% tariff on some Chinese goods. Now, this came into effect just after midnight, as you've been hearing in the news. And as you just heard Christine Ramlakan say, it, markets obviously are reacting as well. Now, China is promising to fight to the end, that's a quote, against what it calls bullying tariffs, also a quote. It is effectively a trade war between the world's two biggest economies. Now, to talk about what this means, how it's going to affect you, consumers, and where Canada fits into this picture, Moshe Lander's with us via Zoom, professor in economics at Concordia University. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, as I mentioned, we walked through sort of looking at markets and what's going on here in the back and forth. But what do you think Trump's rationale is for slamming China with such high tariffs?
Well, it's hard to get inside that man's head. I think that if I had to try and interpret it, he sees trade as a zero-sum game. So if one side is winning, the other side must be losing. And the way that he measures wins and losses is through that trade surplus or trade deficit. The U.S. has a trade deficit with Canada. Remember, it's $50 billion. He inflated it to over $200 billion to try and make his point. In the case of China, the U.S. has a trade deficit of around $300 billion. It's a huge number to be sure, but when both economies run into the tens of trillions of dollars, it's not really that significant in the grand scheme of things. But again, if you see trade as a zero-sum game, then it must be the story that the U.S. is losing here something to China. And so the purpose of the tariffs is to right this terrible wrong as he sees it.
What is China's leader Xi Jinping doing to counter or steady China's economy, facing this tariff threat?
Well, he's going to put tariffs back like everybody else has been doing, that he views this as an unprovoked attack. And so tariffs back on the U.S. is if you're going to wrong me, I'm going to wrong you back. If the view of Trump is that he is righting a wrong, then in China's retaliation, they are wronging the right. But, they're going to try and shore up their stock market. You did say in the previous report that Asian stock markets are mixed, and that's for a reason. The Chinese government is intervening in their major stock markets to try and keep them from free fall like we're seeing around the rest of the world. And they're probably going to cut off the access to rare earths, which is super important in the technology industry, among other things. That's partly why Trump is fixated on Canada. We have a large amount of those here in our country. And it's also partly why he's fixated on Greenland. They have a large amount of it as well in their country. And so if he's losing access to it, then that's going to make it really difficult for the U.S. to produce some key manufactured goods that need those as a critical input.
How resolved, according to analysts, how resolved is Xi Jinping to go head-to-head with Trump?
Oh, I think he's itching for this. China can play the long game in a way that the U.S. can't. The U.S. economy is 60% built on the back of consumer spending. So when consumers really take it on the chin, which they're about to give enough time, they're not going to respond well. But in the U.S., of course, you have the ballot box to express your discontent, or you have street protest. Neither of those things exist in China. And the wave of nationalism that we're going to see come out of China is we're going to defeat the U.S. We're going to take our rightful place at the head table among global economies. And if this is the way that we have to do it, we can afford to torpedo our economy for 5 years, 10 years, whatever's necessary. And in part, if there's any discontent or dissent, you just round everybody up and remove them from the streets. I think that they're in a much greater position to be able to withstand the consequences than a consumer-driven economy like the U.S. is.
Just before I ask you about global consumers being affected, and the example a lot of places are leaning into is the cost of our tech. I will ask you about that, Moshe, but I want to just intervene here with the Canadian point perspective. Given this changing relationship between the U.S. and China, what's the opportunity for Canada?
I don't know that we have a great opportunity here. These are our two biggest trade partners, and they're now engaged in a war with each other. And of course, don't forget that we're in a trade war with the U.S. ourselves. The last thing that we want to see is either of these two countries look at Canada and say, and whose side are you on in this fight? If we're forced to pick sides, 6 months ago, I don't think it would have even been a question. Now it's maybe a little bit more of an interesting contest as to which side Canadians would fall out on. Is this how bad things have gone between Canada and the U.S. that we would look to China as being maybe a more dear friend to us that we would want to cozy up to? Mm-hmm. I think that we're in a very difficult situation here. We rely on both countries as a major market for our exports, and both countries are a major market for our imports.
So let's get to the consumers. How might U.S. and global consumers as well be affected by this trade battle between China and the U.S.? And what products do you think that we should be leaning into understanding that about?
Well, it's going to get ugly across the board here. I don't think anything's really going to be spared. China, of course, is in heavy manufacturing, and they still produce a lot of goods for the world. The U.S. is very much into the tech sector, and partly the way that the trade system has worked is by removing those barriers. Everybody can focus on what they're doing best and trading with each other for best. What you're going to have now is that if they're engaged in a trade war, it's the third-party countries like Canada are going to say, well, we get a large amount of goods and services from you on these things, and we get a large amount of goods services from you on those things. All of those things are eventually going to become more expensive. But the key to remember is every time we've come on and talked about like inflation or unemployment or GDP, I always make the point of saying it takes time for these things to work their way through the economy. Just because you put tariffs on today does not mean prices jump tomorrow. So the longer that this war is extended between these two countries, given time, we are going to see it spill over into consumer prices around the world in a way that's going to make inflation very uncomfortable.
I brought up the tech and the phone example because it's one that I've seen used where people are just really trying to break down here when you think about components that are made to make your phone, and if they are made in China, like where are they going to be made now? And, before there's a place that's making those components in North America, then how much more is your phone going to be? And there's some astronomical numbers going around out there. But as you're saying, any effect that we're going to see from whether it's on tech or vehicles or whatever else we've been talking about won't be immediate. I think the thing that a lot of people are wondering is when will it be? Like, what is the long game? And maybe there's no answer to that, just like trying to get into Trump's brain, there's no answer. But what's a sense of when the impact of this could be seen at the consumer level in your view?
It'll happen gradually. So it's not going to be like overnight prices jump 104%. I think what you're going to see is that as products need to be replaced, depending on how long that supply chain lasts and depending on how much inventory there is, as you have to start replacing those goods and services, then you're going to start to slowly see the creep of prices increasing the longer that the trade war lasts. So it's not going to be something that I could say we'll see it in a month or 3 months or 6 months. It's just the longer that it lasts, the more goods and services will get caught up in it, the more then we will start to see that they're going to be passed on. Last time we were talking about a trade war between Canada and the U.S., remember what I said was that the degree to which it lands on Canada is the degree to which we don't have substitutes. So when these two countries are providing us with a huge amount of our goods and services, we can't onshore that production that easily. And so it's going to affect a wide range of our prices. Just the more perishable, the more short term, the faster they need to be replaced, the quicker we start to see the consequences.
Yeah, that ocean's feeling really big right now. All right, Moshe, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
That's Moshe Lander, economics professor at Concordia University. It is 3 minutes to 7 o'clock, and Heather Wells joins us now with a look at today's headlines.
Good morning. Well, concerns about Donald Trump, trade, and the economy are top of mind during this federal election campaign. A coalition of environmental organizations, though, worries the environment is being ignored. We're going to hear from Laura Cameron at Manitoba's Climate Action Team, who says climate change and the cost of living are not mutually exclusive topics. A Manitoba newspaper editor is using the power of persuasion to combat a deadly measles outbreak in the U.S. John Dewick is the editor of the Mennonite Post. He paid a visit last month to a Mennonite community in Texas where the measles outbreak there is responsible for the deaths of 2 unvaccinated children. We'll hear what happened on that visit coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
In Manitoba, the cold spot is up in Churchill, minus 24. Your warm spot's Kleefeld down here in southeast Manitoba, 2 degrees right now. Winnipeg, we're sitting at 1. It's rainy and drizzly, and it's going to be like that for most of the start of the day, a high of 7 degrees in the city today. The morning commute is wet, but wonderful. No problems so far. 788-3093 if you do need us. In the next hour of the show, if you have a special mystery rock at home or mineral and you need it identified, we've got the event for you. So stay tuned. At 7:40, we're going to hear more about something that's coming up locally. Also, to Serious Matters, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month in this province. Today, we're going to highlight an online tool called Reese that is used to report incidents of sexual violence. We'll talk to the founder, who's from Winnipeg, about how it's being used at university campuses all across the country. And we'll have more in the story. Heather's been mentioning a report from Mike Arsenault in more detail in the next hour about MPI, saying that distracted driving is even more dangerous than drinking and driving, and those latest concerning stats. Stay tuned. It's all still ahead on CBC. World Report's next at 7.
I love this place. I love the Bow River. I remember growing up, my grandfather would literally feed his family from the Bow River.
As Canadians choose to travel more here at home, we are building the ultimate travel guide with listeners curating the list. Hear from our champions for places like Churchill, Manitoba, the Bow River, and Alberta, coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. China is clapping back at the United States in the face of the new tariffs. As of this morning, all Chinese imports to the U.S. face a 104% tariff. U.S. President Donald Trump says it will help boost America's economy. In response, China is imposing a tariff of 84% on all U.S. goods. That is up from the 34% it previously announced. China's tariffs are expected to take effect just after midnight tonight. The CBC's Katie Nicholson is in Washington. And Katie, what are we hearing from Donald Trump?
Well, President Trump was defiant last night in a 90-minute speech just hours before these tariffs kicked in, telling Republicans that they will be legendary and that his plan will work.
I know what the hell I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. These countries are calling us up, kissing. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything.
Trump also said he would soon be announcing a major tariff on pharmaceuticals, and he said those companies would then rush back to the U.S. Now, it's important to know that outside of the U.S., China and India and several European countries, they are major players in the pharmaceuticals industry, so this could touch off more disruption in the trade war. But of course, Trump's harshest words were reserved for China, who he predicted would eventually make a deal, and that is, of course, because they are now subject to that eye-popping 104% tariff. That was after Trump added another 50% to tariffs he already had on the table. So China, equally defiant, as we have seen, not backing down to bullying, it says, and its finance ministry announcing this morning it will impose additional tariffs of 84% on U.S. goods. So just not only holding their ground, but another escalation here.
Tell us about some of the reaction.
Well, unsurprisingly, Asian markets continue to be down. The main stocks across Europe in a slump, the FTSE in London down too. And within Wall Street, I mean, we are expecting Wall Street to open soon. But already, MAGA billionaire Bill Ackman has posted sort of a long diatribe on X, urging the president to pause these tariffs. He says if that doesn't happen, small businesses are going to go bankrupt and then medium-sized businesses will follow.
Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Katie Nicholson in Washington. As this trade war continues to unfold, some analysts say China and other Asian countries could end up playing a different role. Lisa Shing gives us a picture of what that could look like.
The world order of the last 80 years, as we know it, is dead.
Cameron Johnson is a senior partner at supply chain consultancy Tidal Wave Solutions. Based in Shanghai, he says China and other Asian countries could become key players on the world stage.
The whole world is shifting here. If you're not on that train, you're going to get screwed and your people are going to get screwed. And that's not good.
As Donald Trump isolates the U.S. and antagonizes the rest of the world in his tariff war, it may just become impossible to ignore the question of what new world order will emerge after all this. China is the world's second largest economy after the U.S., and diplomatically, its influence is also increasingly far-reaching, says Dan Wang, China director for consulting firm Eurasia Group.
We've seen a higher presence of China in areas like the Middle East, Africa, Latin America, with U.S. retreating from foreign aid.
But Dan Treffler, an international trade professor at the University of Toronto, warns there are risks of engaging China, at least for Canada.
China has been very arbitrary in its actions against Canada, and those actions have been very harmful.
Treffler says what the U.S. does is also unpredictable. There could be policy reversals or political change. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Canada is not being directly slapped with any new U.S. tariffs today, but it is bringing in some of its own retaliatory tariffs. In response to the new duty on Canadian automobiles, Canada is imposing its own 25% tariff on any U.S.-made vehicles that do not comply with the new NAFTA. And vehicles that do comply with the deal will also have tariffs on their non-Canadian and non-Mexican components. Health authorities in Gaza say at least 26 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza City. Dozens more were injured in the same Israeli airstrike this morning. It hit a multi-floor residential building and damaged other houses nearby. So far, there's been no immediate comment from the Israeli army. Take a listen to this moment at Liberal leader Mark Carney's rally last night in Calgary.
That's a tough.
Mr. Carney, there's a genocide happening in Palestine.
Thank you. Thank you, Diana. I'm aware, which is why we have an arms embargo.
Someone in the crowd interrupted his speech to ask a question about the war between Israel and Hamas. Carney tried to move along from the subject, but some Muslim and Arab Canadian voters want to hear more from party leaders on this. As Nicole Williams tells us, they are accusing politicians of avoiding the topic.
We've got, a humanitarian crisis.
There's many things on the mind of Aisha Shirazi this election. The cost of living, what's happening in the U.S., but also where Canada stands on the war in Gaza.
And I know that people are really, really troubled by that.
More than 100 Muslim and Arab organizations have signed a letter calling for a clear commitment from party leaders to support Palestinians in Gaza and stand against Islamophobia. But any mention of the issue of the conflict by party leaders on the campaign trail has been few and far between. Egyptian-Canadian Mohammed Ahmed says it's made him question whether he wants to vote at all.
To be honest, I feel nobody care about us.
Ruby Dacher is professor of international development at the University of Ottawa. She says that's because the war as a campaign issue is downright risky because of how divided voters are on the conflict. But she isn't sure it will make a difference at the polls for Arab Canadians.
What we can see is that the Arabs are very much, I wouldn't say spread equally among the parties, but I would say spread enough among the parties for there not to be a huge backlash of one group over the other.
Even still, Shirazi says voters like her want to know where Canada's political leaders stand on the war in Gaza. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
On the campaign trail, Liberal leader Mark Carney will wrap up his time in Calgary this morning and then head to Saskatoon. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is starting his day in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. He'll be in Brampton for a rally tonight. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh and Grand Chief Stuart Phillip met in Burnaby, BC last night.
It's just how important for me as a national leader it is to always center as a part of our responsibility at the national level, fighting for justice for Indigenous people. I think it's very important. I think it's fundamental to building a fairer Canada.
Singh is making an announcement this morning in Vancouver. Then he will attend the First Nations Summit before traveling to Saskatoon. His campaign event tonight will be just a few hours after Carney's. Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet has 3 separate media availabilities in Quebec. The Green Party co-leaders are doing interviews in Ottawa this morning. Then Elizabeth May is starting a tour from Montreal to Moncton. She'll be taking the train. A longtime resident of Ottawa is stranded in the United Kingdom. Her wallet was stolen, and she's a British citizen. So without her permanent residency card, she needs a special travel document to return to Canada. But technical glitches have made the process practically impossible. Elise Skura has more.
Helen Bobbitt was only meant to be in England for 5 days to care for her elderly mother.
People are starting to panic back home.
Bobbitt has lived in Ottawa for 2 decades. She works there. She raised her family there. But she is not a Canadian citizen. And that means she can't get help from Canadian consular officials.
They told me that I had to go online
to the permanent resident portal to apply for an emergency travel document. The site let her upload everything. But when she goes to press the submit button on her application, she can't. It's grayed out without explanation. Immigration lawyer Ronna Lee Carey says that's frustrating, but not unusual.
No error message, which is the issue. At least if they give you an error message, you know what you might need to fix.
Bobbitt has tried renaming documents, reformatting them, re-uploading them over and over and over. There's no answer on the website and no way to reach a human being except by reporting a tech problem.
And I haven't heard anything back from them. And every time I'm saying, I need help urgently. I have life-threatening issues.
After weeks without medication for her diabetes and autoimmune disease, she was eventually admitted to hospital. Now that concern is resolved, but she's still back where she started.
So I'm stuck, and that's where I'm at. And I don't know how to get home.
After CBC reached out to Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, someone did reach out to Bobbitt. They spent over 2 hours on the phone attempting to submit her application, but couldn't solve the problem. Elise Skura, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. You're on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. On a rainy Wednesday morning, we're going to have quite a lot of cloud cover. I started the show by saying I felt like I lied to everyone yesterday. I was like, it's going to be sunny all day. And then the forecast changed. It was actually quite cloudy and cool yesterday. Today really does feel like a fresh spring day. It's getting cleaned up out there with that rain. So thanks for being with us wherever you're joining CBC from this morning. This hour on the program, MPI says distracted driving is even more dangerous than drinking and driving. But Manitobans are not getting the message. We're going to walk you through the most recent stats with a special report from CBC's Mike Arsenault. He'll be here at 10 to 8. In addition, this hour on the show, calling all rock hounds. If you're a rock collector or you love learning about fossils, there's an event happening where they can help you identify what you have in your possession. So we're going to look at some rocks in the studio just for a bit of something lighter on this, as I mentioned, rainy morning. We do begin with a serious conversation, though, so stay right here because it is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. This morning, we're going to talk about an online tool that's been helping people report incidents of sexual violence either on campus or in workplaces. We're going to talk to the local founder about, obviously, the importance, but also about how the service is expanding to help not just in North America, but around the world. So stay tuned. Right now, Heather Wells joins us live. It is 7:12, and she's here with our morning headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Coalition of Manitoba Environmental Organizations is worried the environment is being ignored in this federal election campaign. Laura Cameron at Manitoba's Climate Action Team says climate change and the cost of living are not mutually exclusive. And as Winnipeg gets set for whiteout street parties again, it's not just the fans, but it's businesses in downtown Winnipeg who are hoping big crowds will result in fantastic business. That's coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Welcome.
Let's get into what's happening in the actual forecast. Abby Adiyemi has the details.
It's damp and cloudy across the province today. Some rain and drizzle expected in the southern part of the province. And the further north you travel, you see chilly conditions there. It will be sunny in Churchill, but not warming things up much today. Right now, Winnipeg, a bit of light rain falling outside, enough to make you want to reach for that umbrella. If you're setting out today, it's going to be a soggy one. We're going to see some light winds. Expect on and off showers with maybe some freezing drizzles here and there throughout the day, and it will stay cloudy and damp. We warm up to 7 degrees later. As mentioned, light breeze expected throughout the day. In other regions, we will also see this mix of cloudy conditions and chance of rains, with temperatures hovering around 7 degrees in most of the regions. We have Dauphin seeing mist this morning, and it's chilly in Churchill. Wind chill feels like -33.
Didn't we have this conversation one rainy morning before? Are you like anti-umbrella? Like you're not about the umbrella?
No, I'm the guy that leaves the house with the umbrella and never returns with it.
Oh.
So it's more like a donation.
All right, we'll have to have a look for it around CBC. You're going to need it later, as you just told all of us. All right, Corey Funk is here. Did you run in this morning?
I did, and it was I was underprepared. I forgot that rain is a thing that can happen, so I walked outside and I definitely got a little wet on the way in. The only issue in terms of traffic, though, that I've heard of so far this morning is just that closed section of Sargent. It's been an issue for a little while now between Valor and Erin. It's closed both ways because they're repairing a big old sinkhole that showed up there. So heads up there, you won't be able to go down Sargent. But if you do see anything else going on out there, if you're walking, biking, driving, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, as I've just mentioned, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month in our province. And for those who are victims of sexual assault or intimate partner violence, it can be difficult to know where to turn for help. But there's an online tool that has been helping victims report cases of sexual violence in a safe, secure way. It's called REASE. It stands for Respect, Educate, and Empower Survivors. Now, it offers various options for reporting incidents on university campuses or in a workplace. Now, it's being used, as I mentioned, across Canada and the U.S. It's getting a lot of attention around the world, though. And Mary Lobson is the CEO and founder of REASE, and she's from Winnipeg. She's in studio this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So why did you create REASE, and how long ago did this, how did the idea come about?
Yeah. I've worked in the gender-based violence field here in Manitoba for close to 30 years. And this province really has been a leader related to technology and issues related to tech-facilitated harm. 2009, Gord McIntosh launched a cybersecurity awareness strategy. And that kind of evolved over time. I was a trainer in the province looking specifically at technology and gender-based violence. And over time, just the issue of sexual violence really hasn't changed on campuses since I was a student. It's one of the only violent crimes not to really have decreased. And so looking to see how we might use technology to reduce barriers to reporting, create trauma-informed spaces for survivors to be able to come forward, but then also to fill the data gap and gather information that can be used to help mitigate risk and inform prevention.
I touched a bit on well, you're talking about how Reese works, but can you walk through how it works to report an incident and also what privacy is in place? Because that's an important piece of this.
Sure. We initially launched in September 2020. We partnered with the colleges and universities here in Manitoba across the province. And so reporting is very specific within an organization or within an entity. So an individual can come to the platform, let's say of their college, their university, their workplace. We work with Winnipeg Folk Fest. We work in the tech sector with North Forge Technology Exchange. And they come in, they create a record. And for us, that was really important that we created a safe journaling space so that someone can create that record and hold that record. They may not know today what they want to do with it. And it may take time in their process to think about, where do I want to report? How do I want to come forward? And then wanting to give options to folks. So depending kind of what the operational environment is, they would have various options to do an anonymous report, connect to their campus, report to a festival organizer, or to HR if it's in a workplace. So it's customized and adapted for the particular environment that it's being used.
What's common among the environments? Although I appreciate it's customized and adapted. In all the years you've been doing this work, what do you find the commonalities are?
Well, I think the commonalities are that this issue is prevalent across campuses, communities, and workplaces. It exists where we live, work, learn, and play, and there's not really a space where this issue doesn't occur. And I think that's the thing, that people should think about. And how do we make sure that regardless of whether I'm taking a bus or going to an event or going to school or going to work, what are the ways that we can enhance safety and reporting for individuals who may experience something in a particular environment?
Now, you've chosen, I understand, not to do tracking on your website.
Correct.
What went into that decision?
Yeah, that for us is about being trauma-informed and really thinking about how privacy and data security should be safeguarded for individuals using the platform. So we don't use any third-party analytics, any type of tracking, and really wanting it to be a safe space just for the individuals using it. They own their data, so we don't own their data. We can't see their encrypted records, and it's really agency for survivors and users that when they're ready to share their story, that's when they can choose to use some of the other options that might be there.
Which is in line with, in Manitoba, we've been talking for so many years about when you think about reporting, for example, sexual assaults to police. For some victims, they'll say that's not the place that they want to go. They're not sure. And then there's other options at different centers as well if you're looking to those spaces because you want to speak it, but maybe there's steps along the way. Because you said it's trauma-informed.
For sure. It's a process for people a lot of times coming forward and even making sense of what happened. And sometimes for some people just putting that down, jotting that down, getting that information out can be really helpful in their kind of healing journey or the way they choose to come forward. We've partnered with local law enforcement. So in higher ed, a student would be able to report to their school, but also use that same record to report to police. And so it really, part of it is also minimizing the amount of times that someone has to retell that story.
I understand that, speaking of the healing aspect of reporting, someone reported an incident that happened in the 90s, and they talked directly about this. Can you tell us, what can you share about that?
Yeah, that was one of our campus partners, and they had heard on the radio that, that Reese was launching at their local school where they had gone to school and been harmed, and they had never told their institution for that. So it was really important for them to be able to at least be counted in those numbers and share that.
Because you carry it if something happens to you. I mean, I shouldn't project here and get personal, but obviously, I mean, I'm a woman. It's very hard not to know and to know people who've had incidents and happen with them, and you carry it for your life. And then to be able to speak it, as you said.
Absolutely. It can have profound long-term impacts on people's overall well-being.
I want to ask you sort of from the business point of view purely this question, and you're going to hear my tone change because really you've created almost like I think you've described it, you did an interview with the Free Press recently, I think you described it as almost like a tech startup. Tell me about the attention you're getting from campuses and organizations, workplaces around North America and in the world.
Yeah, I've started a number of not-for-profit organizations, and was really deliberate in thinking about what is the best way to move this work forward. And so, was part of the Winnipeg startup community, and it's a social impact technology, really focusing on the technology and leveraging that. We created a feature within the platform that's called Repeat Perpetrator Identification, and it's a matching part of the platform where if I identify or put in some identifiers for the person that harmed me, someone else has the ability to come in, put in those identifiers, and change a match. And that's a really innovative technological solution to identifying someone who may be posing risk within a community. And I think we can look at someone like Kelsey McKay from Vincent Massey, where there was a number of individuals who he had harmed. We're working in sport, in hockey across North America, and so have created this system of reporting where if I'm a coach in the WHL and I move to the USHL in the US, that can be tracked and individuals can be identified. So it's really thinking about the technology and how we can utilize that and innovate to support survivors.
I'm sad you're so busy. I'm grateful that you're creating such an effective way for people to do the work.
Thank you, Marcy.
Mary Lobson, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much.
That is Mary Lobson, founder and CEO of Reese. If you want more information about the online tool, please visit reesecommunity.com. So that is REES community.com.
Narrative, lyric, heroic, romantic, verse, or prose. The 2025 CBC Poetry Prize is on. Send in your best unpublished poem or poetry collection. Up for grabs, cash prizes from the Canada Council for the Arts, a 2-week writing residency at the Banff Centre for Arts and Creativity, and your work published on CBC Books. Contest closes June 1st. For rules and more, go to cbcbooks.ca.
It is 7:23 a.m. It's mostly cloudy, 1 degree. It's rainy in Winnipeg. Brandon's mostly cloudy as well, 0 and mostly cloudy. In Thompson also, and it's -4 right now. We've got music from Jade Turner, who's a multi-award-winning singer-songwriter. Grew up in northern Manitoba. We played Jade a lot on the show. Recently released her 3rd studio album. It's called Breathe. And from it, this is Taking It Easy.
I'm gonna lie, this year has been pretty hard. But I learned a lot, I'm proud I've come so far. Sometimes life just pushes you around, but I know my worth, I'll straighten out my crown. But I feel like it's time to take a I could change. I need to learn to take a chance, to go out and laugh, to go out and dance. Yeah, I feel like it's time to take a break. I deserve it. taking it easy. I'm taking it easy.
Jade Turner and Taking It Easy on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us on 89.3 FM. It is time for morning sports. Scott Regier joins us. Hello to you.
Hey there, Marcy.
Let's talk about the Jets. They weren't in action last night, but they did get some help as they try to win their division, right?
Yeah, from the Vancouver Canucks of all teams. The Canucks' comeback last night was remarkable. This has never happened before. They were in Dallas, trailing the Stars by 3 goals with 1 minute left. Vancouver pulled their goalie, scored thrice, tied it, and then won it in overtime. That's never happened before. They won it in overtime. So all of this means, isn't that something?
That's crazy.
And they're not going to make the playoffs. So I mean, good for them. But what this means to Winnipeg is that the Jets' magic number to clinch the Central Division is down to 5. Any combination of Jets wins and Dallas losses that equal that number, 5, would seal it for the Jets. Meantime, there was much more concerning news off of the ice for the team yesterday, Marcy. Jets prospect Chaz Lucius has announced his retirement. He was just drafted in the first round in 2021, but has revealed he has been diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. EDS affects the connective tissues that support joints and organs throughout the body. Lucius said in a statement yesterday that given his diagnosis, his injury history, and the physical nature of the game, he's been advised to not continue to play. The Jets say that they fully support his decision. Lucius now says he looks forward to being an advocate for others with EDS. What absolutely heartbreaking news for that young man.
How devastating, yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine. And one other hockey note, and we'll talk about this throughout the rest of the week. World Women's Championship starting today in Czechia. Canada, the defending champions, and they'll start their tournament tomorrow against Finland.
All right, the Canadian women's soccer team also has been busy this week.
Yeah, playing Argentina in a couple of friendlies on the West Coast, Marcy. They thumped the Argentines in Vancouver last Friday, but fell against them in Victoria last night, 1-0. Casey Stoney then suffers her first loss since taking over from Bev Priestman as the team's coach. Then you have what was quite a day in the European Champions League. Arsenal were significant underdogs in their home quarterfinal against Real Madrid, but that's because no one saw the performance of Gunners midfielder Declan Rice coming.
It's Rice again! Oh! My goodness! Incredible! This is Declan Rice's night!
In his previous 338 pro matches, Rice had never scored on a free kick before, and yesterday he did it twice. Exquisitely, I can't say that word, exquisitely executed. And that prompted tabloids this morning in Old Blighty like, bend it like Declan. Arsenal now in the driver's seat to get to the semifinals. The same cannot be said, though, for Bayern Munich. They lost their first quarterfinal leg yesterday to Inter Milan, which will have some Bayern faithful no doubt wondering what might have been had Alphonso Davies been available. Of course, Davies got injured last month suiting up for Canada in a match that Bayern's lawyers say he was pressured to play in despite a pre-existing ailment. A lawsuit against Soccer Canada still being pondered, by the way.
Well, let's finish on a happier note, especially if you're a Jays fan.
Yeah, all hail Easton Lucas. On a chilly Boston night, he was scorching hot on the mound, striking out the first 5 batters he faced in a win over your Red Sox. This follows an equally dominant performance against Washington last week, Marcy. As a reminder, Lucas is a 28-year-old journeyman who's starting in the majors for the very first time. Here's his manager, John Schneider.
You hope it's one of those feel-good stories, right? He's done a really good job of taking advantage of every resource that is available and understanding at this point in his career how his stuff works and really kind of how good he can be. So sometimes it takes a while. Guys need to bounce around a little bit, and he's got a little bit of momentum and he's running with it. So you don't want to, put the cart before the horse, but I think he's in a really good spot right now.
Last year at this time, Easton Lucas was playing for the Toledo Mud Hens. By those standards, the $700,000 he's making on a major league salary has got to feel lavish. Not quite $500 million lavish like Vladdy Guerrero Jr., but, it's an improvement.
All right, Scott, thank you.
You betcha.
That is Morning Sports on CBC with Scott Regier. Still ahead, maybe you don't need a physician. Maybe you need a rock doctor. Coming up after the news, we're going to hear about an event coming up. If you've got a special mystery rock at home or a mineral it needs identifying, we're going to tell you about something that's coming up here and hear from the man who loves to help out with it. So stay tuned. That's after your 7:30 news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's 1 degree. Expect April showers or drizzle on and off throughout the day. High today of 7. Manitoba Public Insurance says distracted driving is on the rise. Its data shows more license suspensions were issued in 2024 than in any of the previous 5 years. Luna Zuniga knows firsthand the impact of distracted driving. She is still struggling to recover from multiple fractures and injuries after being hit last year by a driver who later was charged with driving carelessly.
It only took me a few seconds to step onto the road, and my life changed forever. I don't know what my life's going to look like in the future. I don't know what I'll be able to do.
April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month, and Winnipeg police say they are cracking down. Dedicated officers are camping out on street corners looking for drivers using their cell phones. They say even glancing at your phone at a stoplight is against the law. You can hear more on this story coming up in the next half hour right here on Information Radio. Concerns about Donald Trump, trade, and the economy are top of mind during this federal election campaign. A coalition of environmental organizations worries the environment's being ignored. All three of Canada's most popular political parties are promising not to revive the carbon tax. Laura Cameron at Manitoba's Climate Action Team says climate change and the cost of living are not mutually exclusive.
Canadians, they care about affordability. That's top of mind for sure. But they also care about climate action, and they care about protecting, the places and the things that they want for their children. Like, those concerns are still there, even though, many households are struggling to pay the bills.
Cameron says she would like to see the parties talk about the transition away from fossil fuels as a solution to the affordability crisis. World shares have slumped, and the futures market suggests more losses are in store for U.S. stock markets when trading begins this morning after the latest American tariffs kicked in. U.S. President Donald Trump bragged about the new tariffs at a Republican black tie dinner last night in Washington.
Right now, China's paying a 104% tariff. Think of it, 104%.
China now is responding to the Trump trade action. The Chinese Finance Ministry has announced an 84% tariff is being imposed on all U.S. goods. That is effective tomorrow. Liberal leader Mark Carney held a rally in Calgary last night, taking aim at U.S. President Donald Trump and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre.
President Trump's plan is to divide and conquer. Pierre Poilievre's plan is to divide and be conquered. This is not the time. This is not the time for divisive, angry politics. No. Negativity is not going to win a trade war.
Pierre Poilievre was in Sault Ste. Marie last night talking about large turnouts for his rallies. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh was in Burnaby, where he got the endorsement from a prominent Indigenous chief in that province. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. A newspaper editor in Steinbach has joined the fight against a deadly measles outbreak in the United States. John Dewick is the editor of the Mennonite Post. It is a Low German periodical with readers as far away as South America. He visited a Mennonite community in Texas last month where a measles outbreak has killed 2 unvaccinated children. During that visit and in the pages of his paper, he encourages people to get their children vaccinated. Dewick says the key is not to be judgmental.
I just told them, when I was young, my parents, they made a decision to get the vaccine for me. And I'm happy for that. Just with the example, and not to say them, you have to, or this is the only way.
In addition to the Texas outbreak, more than 600 measles cases have been reported in Ontario. Manitoba has had a total of 10 confirmed or probable cases so far this year. Well, playoff parties are coming.
Go Jets, go! Go Jets, go! Go Jets,
Fans in downtown Winnipeg yesterday gearing up for the whiteout street parties, and downtown businesses are just as excited as the fans. At Rudy's Eat and Drink on Graham, they have high hopes for what a lengthy postseason run could bring. General Manager Mackenzie Robb can't wait.
We have 260 seats and we fill them all, and yeah, I mean, it's different from the regular season for sure, but we've been here many times and we're ready for it.
And this time around, the whiteout street parties will be limited to 5,000 fans. And the first chance you can buy tickets is April 15th. The playoffs begin April 19th. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather. Well, let's get into our forecast now. It's time for your regional forecast, looking up and down and left and right. I should say north and south and east and west all over Manitoba. Abby's in with the details.
Good morning once again. We're expecting cloudy skies, drizzle and light rain in the southern part of the province, and it's cooler as you travel up north. In Winnipeg, we're seeing temperatures still stuck at 1 at this point. That light rain is being felt on and off. Expect cloudy conditions to stay with these off and on showers throughout the day. We will be warming up to 7 degrees. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley regions. Temperatures hovering around 0 at this time. Cloudy. There's a chance of light showers this morning. Temperatures for that part of the province will warm up to 10 with light winds. Brandon, it's 0 and mostly cloudy. Today we'll see a mix of fog patches dissipating this morning. Cloudy conditions with a slim chance of showers or flurries. Highs will be around 6 degrees. And in the Parkland region, Dauphin is experiencing some misty conditions. So if you're on the road, take it easy out there. Temperatures near -1 at this time. There is a chance of rain or flurries in the forecast. That will be followed by a mix of sun and clouds later. The region is going to be warming up to 3 degrees. Moving into the Interlake region, Gimli surrounding areas, we're seeing cloudy conditions with showers and drizzle in the region. Temperatures around 0 right now, warming up to 4 degrees. Up north, the Power Flin Flon and surrounding areas, cloudy skies, -1. We are tracking a slim chance of showers for that region, warming up to 4. In Thompson, partly cloudy at this time, -4. Your high is 4 degrees. Light breeze will accompany that. Expect temperatures to deep to -4 tonight. Then, further north in Churchill, it is cold. It is -23 with freezing fog. We should expect some sunny but chilly conditions in that part of the province. You warm up to 5 degrees, but the sun will not be warming things up much this morning for folks there. Your wind chill feels like -33 this morning. So in summary, the southern part of the province, we call it like the conditions that's getting more like cloudy skies, light rain and fog patches, while the north is experiencing colder conditions with that some light snow still being felt here and there, that freezing fog in Churchill. Winnipeg is looking damp today, though.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Well, remember our rain jackets. Corey Funk.
Commute kind of rocks out there. Don't take this lovely conditions for granted.
Oh, my gosh. It happens. How long were you sitting there waiting to say that?
I was very excited. I was going through all my rock knowledge.
Now I'm going to explain. I'll explain why. But
okay.
Is there anything to actually say, or is that actually true?
No. Just give us a call on the CBC commuter line 204-788-3093.
You can stay for this interview if you want.
I might a little bit.
You've made the rock and granite puns. Our next interview is for Rock Hounds, because there is an event coming up, and there's it's put on by the Mineral Society of Manitoba. They're inviting people tonight to show and tell. It's their show and tell event. They're even going to have rock doctors on hand. What's that? Well, if you bring your rock and you don't know much about it, or if you've got something in your home and you don't know much about it, this is the event for you. Participants can bring their most confusing minerals, rocks, and fossil specimens to be identified by experts, and it's all free. So joining us to talk about it in studio is Matt Strength. He's the president of the Mineral Society of Manitoba. He's a mineral enthusiast, and he's brought a whole bunch of samples, which I'm excited about. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
How did you get into this? Like, how old were you when you became sort of really into the rocks, into the minerals?
I think I caught on a lot more, both my wife and myself, when we were in our 30s. But it's always been a passion, essentially, about our family. So my mother and her mother were really into rocks. My mom is an American citizen who has come up as, with draft dodging hippie father. So big into the rocks around California and Arizona. My wife's mother really enjoyed Canadian rocks and minerals. So it's been in the family. And then as we've gotten older, we've really gotten into the hobby. One rock turns into to 10, next thing you know, it's filled your living room, and you know, it's a great way to spend some time and make some poor financial decisions.
We're going to talk about that in a minute because we can talk about the cost range. I wonder whether or not it's really been taking off because, and forgive my ignorance here, but there's a really big following around gems. And would that come into the types of specimens and things that you look for? Or is that kind of a separate thing, gems?
It's all part and parcel the same. You have essentially, the good ones that everyone thinks of as gem, the crystals essentially that have that gemmy quality, which is very clear, bright colors, very rich. They can be what's termed as faceted, made into jewelry. They can cut to made into what they call cabochons, for pendants and things. So that's a big portion of it. Canada itself has lots of good stuff as well there too, but a lot of those materials come from, across seas or down in the United States, particularly Arizona regions. But it's a wide variety itself that you can find all sorts of good stuff that way. My personal interest is more about the natural specimen. I really like to find, that rock or stone. It can be gemmy, it can be dull, but trying to find that natural piece that really shows you what it looked like in a good example.
Do you love that because you love the history about it, or like what do you feel like when you found a good sample? Because I'm guessing it doesn't always go by size.
Absolutely. We have, our rock doctor that you mentioned in here that's going to be showing up tonight, Marty. He has actually got an extensive thumbnail collection, which essentially is rocks and minerals that are under 1 inch by 1 inch. If they can't fit inside of a little clear box that's that dimensions, they wouldn't be termed as thumbnails. Whereas some of the ones you see that are on YouTube these days are really popular in social media are these giant specimens that are, absolutely epic in scale. So it can be everything from the tiniest little point, which can be super fascinating, to large. I think what draws me in on that one is, I always say it, I like to nerd out about the rocks. Sometimes it's the chemical composition, sometimes it's the mine it came from, sometimes it's just the geography around where it came from, or even a unique piece that's, unique to Manitoba in itself.
So let's get to some of these, because if people are watching on YouTube, you're going to get a big treat, because Matt's brought in probably 20 specimens here, maybe more on the table. They're all varying sizes. For our radio listeners, the different colors that I'm seeing around me are like deep purples, and then there's clay colored ones that are the sizes of fists. There are some smaller examples that look sort of flatter. I'm going to go right to the one that you told me is one of your favorites. I have a sample here in my hand. You have one there. What is this we're holding? This one that looks sort of like almost like a clay example, but then there's also shiny little bits in it as well that are white and almost purple.
Absolutely. So what we have here is a perfect example of Manitoba garnets. Essentially, we have skarns in here that have garnet deposits that most people wouldn't expect of in and around the Manitoba region. So the white you see is typical quartz, which is very, very common across Canada, all North America. The brown rock is essentially, well, for lack of saying it's boring, it's in situ of what you came through.
Okay.
Very high iron content. And then we have the actual garnets. Garnets are very popular as a birthstone, as gems as well, too. But in case of Manitoba, we have very high iron content around here. So it's really neat in the ability that we've got these nice, deep, rich colors. So we have everything from dull reds that come out in very large golf ball size garnets, very nice geometric formations. Mm-hmm. And here's a good example of where we start getting into some of the gemmy qualities where these rocks in itself could actually be faceted and turned into potential jewelry. Not typical, for what I find, but...
Do you do that with your collection?
I don't do it as much. The way you see it right now in its in situ natural form, that's
what you like.
My kind of thing.
How many samples do you have in your personal collection?
Few thousand.
Wow.
Probably.
Wow.
I've never counted it.
I love this. And I'm going to out you because this says on it $50. I don't know how much these samples go for, but that also says that it's ocean picture stone.
Absolutely.
And the striations in this are just, I was drawn to this because it's flat and smooth. I'm a tactile person, carry a worry stone and that kind of thing. But I love these oceany colors. I'm going to pass it back so you can show it to the camera here.
Absolutely. And this is really neat. Now,
what
this kind of goes back. I grew up in the Okanagan Valley in BC, and this is very akin to that location of just the Okanagan itself. This is part of a very eclectic individual who's very popular in the rock and mining scene by the name of Dan Hurd, and he has a claim out there where he's been producing this ocean picture stone. So it's very unique a product to him and the Okanagan itself.
Got it.
And a really good example of a Canadian rock. And why it gets his name, as you can see from most of it in the pieces here itself, is it typically creates a very nice picture scene itself of land, rock, and water.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. It looks like a horizon. I don't even think the camera's doing it justice there, but if you see this in person. So some of these you buy, I'm guessing, there must be a buy, trade, sell market for things. What's the range of cost you can get into with a hobby like this?
Sky's the limit. You could have everything from, we have rock and mineral shows that come around twice a year by the name of Silver Cove. They go all across Canada. Wonderful Canadian company.
Yeah.
You can go in as an entry-level person and literally buy things for a couple of dollars. You could easily spend a few $1,000s if you wanted to get into a few pieces.
I'm going to pass this back. Make sure I don't keep it here by accident.
That's okay.
Where's the floodway rock? And let's show that now and talk about that.
This is really unique. So one thing that's really unique to Manitoba in itself is our Red River selenites, or essentially the floodway selenites. They form in this way because they're very delicate selenite crystals, or gypsum, essentially.
And for our radio listeners, I'm always going to pause and give the description so people can see this on camera if you're watching on YouTube. But you're talking about forming in this way. One of them looks like if you stuck together a whole bunch of pieces of small ice almost, and it's sort of the size of maybe a walnut, and it's all jagged. It kind of looks like something from a sci-fi movie or Marvel movie, right? I'm going to hold this one. And then the other one is actually more, it looks more yellow on the edge there. So these are both formed from the floodway?
Absolutely. And you can see from many of the other ones here, these are some nice example of what they call selenite roses. Not obviously, perfect specimens, but depending on the region within it, floodway at the lower end, you get some very nice clear pieces like you're holding yourself in the floodway
amazing.
rose.
Yeah, cool.
In some of the other tributaries that have dried up, which have a little more iron content or a little more dirty, as some people would say, you get that nice deep yellowing and bright colors in itself. And that's unique to Manitoba. They're all across Canada and they're throughout the world. But Manitoba has some very unique conditions with our clay and our silt content here. So that's why we can get these very delicate, beautiful little rose crystals, because we don't have the rocks over the millions of years to come along and bash them to pieces.
Okay, I'm enjoying this way too much. So I've got like probably a minute left maximum, but what I'll ask you about the show in a second, but which piece on the table have I not asked about that you think is really cool?
A good one here is, of course, this is a Thunder Bay amethyst, purple amethyst around the world, but Thunder Bay is a Canadian product, has high iron, which makes it nice and red. That's very unique
the top's
in itself.
Red, the bottom's purple. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's super popular. And this is one of my personal favorites. This is a blue halite from Saskatchewan. So essentially salt.
This tool, you have a tool that'll actually show off some of the things. I forgot to ask about that too. It looks like a microscope, but it's not.
Yes, one of the great things about our selenites is they are a UV refractive rock. So what the people can't see on camera is with a short wave or a long wave light, it will actually iridescent itself and create a beautiful glow-in-the-dark effect.
And that's what we're looking at now. This the Red River sample is just glowing on camera. You can see that, and that is so cool.
And Marcy, if you see, this is a refractive wave, so when I pull it away, you can't see. It'll actually hold the light for about 2 or 3 seconds as it glows.
That is wild. What an interesting hobby and a pastime, obviously more than a hobby that you have here going on. So the Mineral Society of Manitoba has been around since 1971. Tonight is their event. And if you want to take rocks, if you don't know what they are in your house, if you're into this, or you just want to learn more about the club, please go. It's all free. You can check it out. It is happening at their show and tell event. The Rock Doctors will be on site to help you out. So it's 5:30 in the Exchange. The address is 100 Adelaide Street, 100 Adelaide Street. It's their show and tell. If you want information further, you can go to mineralsocietyofmanitoba.weebly.com. And I think that's all the info. Matt, thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate having you here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate having me.
I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Thank you.
That is Matt Strength, who is obviously president of the Mineral Society of Manitoba, and in to tell us about what's happening tonight.
When making commercials, just like the movies, there are multiple takes for many reasons. Actors mixing up words.
And I'll stay skewed for the news.
Celebrity meltdowns.
Speak up.
And oversampling the product.
The French champagne.
Commercial outtakes on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
Time right now is 11 minutes to 8 o'clock on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team at the show. It's 1 degree on a rainy and drizzly start to our day here on Wednesday in Winnipeg. Well, next on the program, let's talk about something that has been in the news this morning. Manitoba Public Insurance is reminding Manitobans to put down the phone. April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month, but stats released by MPI this month show that Manitobans are becoming more distracted than ever. CBC's Mike Arsenault has been crunching the numbers and looking at the stats. He also had the opportunity to go out and see what some drivers are distracted by. Hi, thanks for coming in, Mike.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So let's talk about the numbers, the stats first. What MPI's numbers tell us about distracted driving, and how does it compare to previous years?
Well, stats from MPI show in 2024, there were 2,817 three-day suspensions, up 15% from 2023, and 157-day suspensions, up a full 53%. And just a reminder to people, a 7-day suspension are for drivers who have been caught more than once. Distracted driving caused 675 collisions in Manitoba in 2024, and more than 50% of those happened in Winnipeg. And something that really stood out to me in 2024, 84 people were killed in Manitoba due to motor vehicle collisions, 34 of which MPI say were caused by distracted driving. Here's what MPI spokesperson Tara Seal says about some of the misconceptions around distracted driving.
Maybe there's a perception that distracted driving is a lesser of the evils compared to impaired driving and speeding and those types of things. But really, what we're seeing is that distracted driving is causing the most fatalities on Manitoba roadways. So people are dying in larger numbers because of distracted driving than impaired driving or speeding.
So are we just talking about people on their cell phones? Like, what's the definition they use for distracted driving?
No, actually, distracted driving covers a wide range of things people do while behind the wheel. Here's Tara Seal again about what qualifies as distracted driving.
A lot of people think it's cell phones or electronics. That's not all that distracted driving is. Some of the issues that we're seeing are the electronic consoles in cars. People are setting their GPS, or they're answering calls, or they're choosing music. Children are a fairly large distraction for many parents driving. So all of these things take your eyes off the road, take your focus off the road.
Winnipeg police say there isn't a distracted driving ticket in the Highway Traffic Act, so they can only issue a fine for using a cell phone or an electronic handheld device while driving. But if you are distracted, you can be charged for driving carelessly, which is a broader term that encompasses any negligent driving behavior that endangers others. And the fine for driving carelessly under the Highway Traffic Act is up to $5,000 and a suspension of your license for up to a year.
She mentioned there the music thing. That drives me nuts when I'm a passenger and the driver's like trying to change the music. And I'm, let me do that. Let me do that, please. You spoke with someone who was impacted by distracted driving. Tell me about them.
Yeah, I spoke with Luna Zuniga in February of last year. She was hit by a car at the crosswalk on Grant Avenue and Lanark Street. A car she says was being driven by a distracted driver. She was working as a crossing guard at the time she was hit. The incident left her with a long list of injuries, including broken bones in her left leg and left arm, broken ribs, torn tendons, and a serious head injury. Zuniga spoke about the lasting impact of her accident.
It only took me a few seconds to step onto the road, and my life changed forever. I don't know what my life's going to look like in the future. I don't know what I'll be able to do. And I'm thinking about all those drivers. They're able to go to work. They're able to go and hang out with friends. And again, I'm stuck looking out a window.
Zuniga's recovery is ongoing. Winnipeg police say the man who hit her was charged with one count of driving carelessly, but the charge hasn't been proven in court yet. If he's convicted, according to the Highway Traffic Act, the outcome could be a fine or a suspended license.
Now, I know as part of your assignment, you decided to go out and see if you could actually, what you could see, if you could observe some distracted drivers in Winnipeg. How long were you out and how long did it take before you saw this?
Yeah, so I went out with a videographer and one of our producers all over the city to see if we could find people distracted driving behind the wheel. It was hard at first. We had a GoPro on the window and I think people felt like they were being watched. So we took it off. We were a little more discreet, and then we started seeing lots of distracted drivers out there. And I realized there's a lot of distractions in cars now, just period. In a span of less than 2 hours, we saw people looking down at their cell phones, fiddling with their consoles in their car, like Tara said, driving with food on their lap, and people weaving in and out of traffic while texting.
What are Winnipeg police doing to address this, especially given the latest stats that you started with, about how much of a problem this is?
I spoke with Sergeant Mark Levesque from the traffic division, who says people driving while distracted is an ongoing issue, and most of what they're seeing is people on their cell phones. The Winnipeg Police Service says it's ramping up enforcement on distracted drivers, with dedicated officers camping out on street corners to catch drivers in the act. Here's Sergeant Levesque.
What we're looking for is the blatant and obvious cell phone use, either holding it in their lap and looking down while they're stopped at a red light, which people think they can use their cell phones while they're stopped in traffic. And that's not the case.
638 people have already had their license suspended in 2025 due to distracted driving. That's as of March 26th. Sergeant Levesque attributes the recent uptick in suspensions to WPS enforcement efforts. So
let's remind people who, we all could use improvements here. What steps can drivers take to improve their own bad driving habits?
Well, Safety Services Manitoba offers a responsible driving course that teaches people about the dangers of distracted driving and offers tips to improve your bad driving habits. The manager of programming, Terrace Barron, told me the main issue they see with drivers is they're just not paying full attention to the road. Here's what he had to say.
So, I mentioned the three types of distractions. You have a visual distraction, eyes off the road, manual distraction, which is your hand or hands off the wheel, and the cognitive distraction, which is your mind off of the road. But the moment we engage in a cell phone text, whether it be reading or responding, you're taking all three away at the exact same time, leaving nothing left on the road. And seconds do count.
Barron tells drivers who take his course to rezone, refocus when they catch themselves being distracted, and eventually it'll become an automatic habit.
You know what? I also like the advice that came out when we started having these conversations years ago when cell phones were becoming a big thing, many years ago. But, just put the phone in the trunk. Keep it away from yourself so you physically can't, at least for that distraction, get it out of sight.
That was a lot of what people said too, just out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. All right, Mike, thank you for crunching the numbers and coming in.
Thank you for having me.
That's Mike Arsenault, reporter with CBC News here in Manitoba. He'll have more in the story, by the way, tonight on CBC News at 6. You can read more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba. as well. It is 4 minutes to 8 o'clock. Before we go to headlines, I just want to remind you of our community studio tomorrow. We are heading to the polls in 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks, to see who's going to be our next prime minister. Information Radio has been out in different ridings in the community. We're meeting candidates and voters. Tomorrow we're in Winnipeg West. We'll be live at the Tim Hortons for the whole morning, 3890 Grant Avenue. We've invited all the candidates from the riding to join us. We do know that we have the conservative incumbent and the Liberal candidate who certainly will be there between 7:30 and 8:30. Earlier this week, I headed out to the riding, though, to get the conversation started. Here's what some of you had to say.
Yeah, I'll be going PC. Absolutely. I just feel like we've lost middle class and it's important to have more structure.
Well, it's kind of tough. I still haven't made my mind up yet.
Okay, is that normal for you? Do you wait and decide?
I do wait. And I look at all parties, not just the top two that are, right now in the lead. I do look at NDP, Green Party and stuff like that.
I think I've made up my mind as to how I'm going to vote. Mm-hmm.
How are you going to vote?
Oh, I think I'm leaning towards Liberal. I think Mark Carney's experience, I think that speaks volumes. And what I've seen so far, I'm leaning towards him. I think he's what we need right now.
It's a very important time to make sure you get out there. You can't complain unless you vote.
So those were some of the voices from the riding of Winnipeg West. But of course, we want to hear all the voices. So let's hear more. Come join us tomorrow, Thursday morning. We're live on location, 6 to 8:30 from Tim Hortons, 3890 Grant. You can also leave a question on our listener line if you can't make it down. But please leave it today so we have a chance to get it into the broadcast. So the deadline for this will be noon today on the listener line, 204-788-3205. And maybe we'll see you tomorrow. Right now, let's go to news headlines with Heather Wells.
Well, concerns about Donald Trump, trade, and the economy are top of mind during this federal election campaign. A coalition of environmental organizations worries the environment is being ignored. Laura Camera at Manitoba's Climate Action Team says climate change and the cost of living are not mutually exclusive. And downtown businesses in Winnipeg are just as excited as Winnipeg Jets fans for the return of the Whiteout Street Party. At Rudy's Eat and Drink on Graham, they have high hopes for what a lengthy postseason run could bring. The general manager there says the impact of big crowds of fans on business is fantastic. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
You and Corey this half hour. You're like, you're going for it with the puns. I like it.
I love me a good pun.
Yeah, we all know I can't deliver one, so good for you guys. It's 2 minutes to 8 o'clock. Heather's back with us, of course. Next news at 8:30 and more headlines coming up. We also, after 8, have a couple of interviews, really interesting. Dr. Bardwaj, a special edition of the medical column, talking about the shingles vaccine and also news that you may have heard about that could getting the vaccine for shingles actually decrease your risk of dementia. He's going to walk us through that. Also, we're going to talk to a school bus driver from Beausejour who's been very active on social media. She wants more safety measures to keep young riders safe. So stay tuned. It's all still ahead.
On Cue with Tom Power.
If you won millions in the lottery, what would you do? I mean, these days, put a down payment down on a house? The new film, The Ballad of Wallace Island, is about a lottery winner who decides to use his money to get his favorite band back together.
I'm so sorry. I'm not really used to having guests.
The guy behind the film, Tim Key, will be here to tell you what inspired it. That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
As Canadians choose to travel more here at home, we are building the ultimate travel guide with listeners curating the list. Hear from our champions for places like Churchill, Manitoba, and the Bow River in Alberta. It's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. U.S. President Donald Trump's global tariffs are now in effect. And of the many countries facing the new duties, China is being hit the hardest with a 104% tariff on its goods exported to the U.S. And now China is fighting back. It is bringing in its own retaliatory tariff of 84% on U.S. goods. Patrick Falk has the latest.
It's another major escalation in the superpower trade war. China's foreign ministry spokesperson Lin Jian says Beijing will never accept America's arrogant and bullying behavior. If the US insists on waging a tariff war, China will definitely retaliate, he says. The 84% tariffs placed on American goods take effect tomorrow. China also lodged another complaint at the World Trade Organization, expressing grave concern about what it described as Washington's reckless behavior. In addition, China added 6 more American companies to its unreliable entities list, as well as 12 others to an export controls list. Chinese firms are banned from selling those companies dual-use goods. That's goods which are used for civilian and military purposes. Beijing did say, though, that it is open to talks, but it demands respect. Trump's provocative actions are making it difficult for either side to engage. The White House says the president will be gracious if China reaches out. Patrick Falk for CBC News, Singapore.
Hundreds of thousands of jobs across Asia rely on exports to the U.S. Those goods are now facing significant tariffs. The economic growth and wealth of many countries in that part of the world hang in the balance. The CBC Salima Shivji has more from Mumbai.
As Donald Trump's punishing tariffs came into effect, the markets in Asia plunged yet again, the panic growing, particularly in countries in Southeast Asia, which had positioned themselves as manufacturing alternatives to China. At this garment factory in Vietnam's largest city, the sewing continues apace, even if worries are everywhere. Vietnam has been hit with one of the highest tariff rates, a whopping 46%, far worse than anyone anticipated. In neighboring Cambodia, it's 49%. The U.S., their largest trading partner, now fickle and unpredictable. Desperate pleas for a delay and more negotiations from Vietnam's prime minister were brushed aside. I'm so worried about losing my job, I can't eat or sleep, says this garment factory worker in Ho Chi Minh City. How will I support my children? The pain on the ground is also being felt in India, which now has a 26% tariff slapped on goods like loose diamonds entering the U.S., a massive industry with many jobs now at stake as production slows, says Anup Mehta of Bharat Diamond Bourse.
In the cutting and polishing industry of diamonds, we are employing roughly 1 million people.
He's looking for some hope anywhere.
Situation, yes, it's difficult today. It can only improve, can't get worse.
Even if it's uncertain exactly how it will get better. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
Canada is not being directly slapped with any new U.S. tariffs today, but it is bringing in some of its own retaliatory tariffs. In a response to the new duty on Canadian automobiles, Canada is imposing its own 25% tariff. It will apply to any U.S.-made vehicles that do not comply with the new NAFTA. And vehicles that do comply will also face tariffs on their non-Canadian or non-Mexican components. Last year, vehicle imports from the U.S. were worth a total of $35.6 billion. Canada's only rice mill is also trying to figure out how to cope. Windsor, Ontario's Dainty Foods is facing tariffs from both sides of the border. As Jennifer LaGrassa tells us, the future of the 142-year-old company is in question.
In Dainty Foods' Windsor facility, a machine shoots rice into a pouch. The Canadian company is trying to maintain business as usual, though for CEO James Maitland, the last few months have been anything but, thanks to tariffs.
A lot of stress, high cortisol, a little bit of weight gain, a lot of lack of sleep.
Maitland oversees Canada's only rice mill, which cleans and processes the grain, a majority of which is imported from the United States. Now, because of Canada's counter tariffs, Dainty Foods is paying 25% more.
We want to continue importing U.S. rice.
To do that, they're filing an exemption with the Canadian government. Without it, they say their plans for future growth are on pause. That includes a $40 million facility in the United States. In an email, a Finance Canada official said they have received exemption requests and are processing them. They wouldn't say how many or how long it could take for applications to be approved.
We want to hear from businesses.
Eric Kuzmarchuk is the incumbent Liberal candidate for Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore.
To make sure we protect them as much as possible, but also delivering a hard and fast counterpunch to the Americans.
Finance Canada says there are other supports businesses can apply for, like the Duties Relief Program and the Duty Drawback Program. Jennifer Lagrassa, CBC News, Windsor, Ontario.
Health authorities in Gaza say at least 29 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza City. Dozens more were injured in the same Israeli airstrike this morning. It hit a multi-floor residential building and damaged other houses nearby. So far, there's been no immediate comment from the Israeli army. Officials in the Dominican Republic say it is too soon to understand why the roof collapsed on a nightclub on Monday. Rescue crews have been working through the night to try to find survivors. Families have gathered outside the Jet Set nightclub looking for information about their loved ones. At least 110 people are confirmed dead. 250 others have been injured. The nightclub was popular for its Monday night merengue. Athletes and politicians were in the crowd. Liberal leader Mark Carney continues his tour of Western Canada, first BC and now Alberta, a province known for its bona fide blue political stripes. But as Karina Roman reports, Liberal supporters are hoping that Carney will be the person to change that, at least a little.
I thought I was in Calgary. This is amazing.
Liberal leader Mark Carney has likely heard the jokes about how lonely it can be to be Team Red in Calgary. For the most part, this is a conservative blue town in a conservative province. But the Liberals are hoping to break through past the one seat they have here in Calgary. Priti O'Brien-Martin is running for the Liberals in Calgary East. The daughter of the late longtime Conservative MP Deepak O'Brien says her dad taught her to not blindly follow a party, but instead to look for a leader who inspires her.
And so now I was inspired by Mr. Mark Carney as our Prime Minister, and so I'm following him. So my dad would be proud.
With rumblings of growing Western alienation and threats that another federal Liberal government could mean a separation referendum for Alberta, Carney has his work cut out for him as he tries to woo Western voters. But supporter Chantal Valliere says she believes more Albertans will give him a chance.
People are realizing that, okay, maybe we didn't like Trudeau, but maybe we just needed a fresh new face, someone who could bring new ideas.
The rally filled the room to its 1,000-person capacity. Another estimated 1,000 people were outside listening to Carney on loudspeakers. That might pale in comparison to the 10,000 plus at the Conservative rally in Edmonton 2 nights ago. But Liberals in this crowd say they felt a little less lonely than usual. Karina Roman, CBC News, Calgary.
After Carney wraps up his Calgary events this morning, he heads to Saskatoon. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is promising a new tough-on-crime law. He unveiled all of that this morning on social media.
Anyone convicted of 3 serious offenses will have no chance at bail, probation, parole, or house arrest. Instead, such offenders will get a minimum of 10 years and up to a life sentence in prison.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh and Grand Chief Stuart Phillip met in Burnaby, BC last night.
It's just how important for me as a national leader it is to always center as a part of our responsibility at the national level, fighting for justice for Indigenous people. I think it's very important. I think it's fundamental to building a fairer Canada.
Singh is making an announcement in Vancouver this morning. Then he will attend the First Nations Summit before traveling to Saskatoon. His campaign event tonight will be just a few hours after Carney's. Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet says he is confident he will hold his own seat in this election.
I'm pretty safe in my riding, but that belongs to those who will vote.
He is campaigning hard today with 3 separate media availabilities in Quebec. The Green Party co-leaders are starting their day in Ottawa. Then Elizabeth May is starting a tour from Montreal to Moncton, and she'll be taking the train. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, initially we thought that today was going to be sunny and double digits, but not so much, folks. We do have a day that feels like spring. It's wet out there and it's cloudy. Thanks for joining us. That is in Winnipeg, at least. You're on CBC's Information Radio. This is the morning show, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Well, maybe you're on the school bus. This morning, in this half hour, we're going to hear from a school bus driver in Beausejour who says she's concerned. She wants more safety measures to keep young riders safe. She's been very active on social media with her message, and we're going to talk to her about her concerns. In addition, this half hour on the program, Dr. Raj Bhardwaj with a special edition of our medical column that is tied to the news. You may have heard about the shingles vaccine and how it is having an effect on some to reduce dementia risk. So what is that research and how does that link work? Dr. Bhardwaj will walk us through all those details. So stay tuned. Right now, Heather Wells with news headlines.
Good morning. Manitoba Public Insurance says distracted driving causes more fatalities in this province than impaired driving. MPI data shows more license suspensions were issued in 2024 than in any of the previous 5 years. April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month, and Winnipeg police say they are cracking down. We're going to hear from a victim of distracted driving coming up. A Manitoba newspaper editor is using the power of persuasion to combat a deadly measles outbreak in the U.S. John Dewick, editor of the Mennonite Post, paid a visit last month to the Mennonite community in Texas, where a measles outbreak is responsible for the deaths of 2 unvaccinated children. We'll hear what happened on his visit in our next local news at 8:30.
Abby, quick weather?
1 degree in Winnipeg. We're expecting on and off showers and some drizzle. It's going to stay damp, and we're getting to a high of 7 today.
Arlington approaching William in traffic. A motor vehicle collision blocking northbound lanes. Emergency crews are on site, but avoid the area if you need. 788-3093. Well, up next on CBC, a Manitoba school bus driver says that more needs to be done to keep young riders safe. Jody Ruda has been driving kids to and from school in her community of Beausejour, Manitoba for the past 5 years. Online, you might know Jody. She's known to her 150,000 followers on TikTok as Jody the Bus Driver. Her videos aim to raise awareness about school bus safety, including her call for seatbelts to be mandatory on all school buses. And to learn more about that, she joins us now via Zoom, and we appreciate having you with us. Hi, Jody.
Hi, I appreciate being here.
So just to sort of back up a step, when did you first start thinking about, the seatbelts on school buses and in your call to have them mandatory on buses? What prompted that for you?
To be honest, it's because of TikTok. I was being sent, after I started getting more and more followers on TikTok, I started getting sent a lot of the crashes that were happening. So I got to see the worst of the worst every single time it happened. And a lot of them, the reoccurring thing that came to my mind was, why isn't there seatbelts? Why isn't there seatbelts? Why isn't there seatbelts? And then in November of 2023 is actually when I put out my own TikTok series, I suppose, of seatbelts in school buses.
So when you were being sent, different things that were showing up in your feed about crashes, do you mean crashes on school buses specifically or on buses carrying, I understand Humboldt also impacted you as well. So that's not a school bus, but it is a team bus.
So I get sent any crashes that happen on buses. I end up getting tagged in them, sent them. So I get to see all of it. Yeah. The school bus ones hit my heart the most. And Humboldt, although it was before when I started driving, even before TikTok, even before I knew I wanted to be a school bus driver, I still remember that day and how it affected me, and now how it affects me every year when it comes up to this time of year.
Yeah, it's the anniversary just passed over the weekend, of course. You yourself were in a collision as well when driving the bus, driving kids to school. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like? Because it was at a crossing where buses have to stop. And that's significant because this also is going to lead me to ask you about another change you want. But what happened in 2023 in September?
So on September 28th, we were just pulling out of the high school onto Provincial 302, out of the elementary school onto Provincial Highway 302. And there is a railroad crossing there, which is uncontrolled. So myself and about 2 other buses in front of me had to stop and go through the railroad crossing. And once it was my turn, I did my whole crossing as I was supposed to, looked in my mirrors and realized the truck behind me isn't slowing down. And he ended up impacting us, probably going around 80 kilometers an hour. It was, from the outside, it didn't look like that big of a crash for the bus. The bus, in fact, was roadworthy immediately afterwards. The truck was never moving again. The engine had actually pushed its way back into the truck's fire wall, so the truck was written off totally. I had all of my students on the bus at the time, and it was one of those moments where I got to see the gambit of emotions that children will go through, because some of them were Snapchatting, others were laughing, and then there were, of course, were the ones that were very, very scared and crying for their parents. And that itself is one of the hardest memories I still have of that crash.
So that stayed with you, the sound of the kids in the bus and the fear there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's 2 things here that you're hoping might change. So one is seatbelts, and the other has to do with the crossing. So can you walk us through that? Because I, as a motorist, have different rules, I understand, than what your rules are for crossing at those railway tracks, right?
Yes. So the railroad crossing, what I'm trying to get changed there is we are the only vehicle in Manitoba that has to stop for controlled and uncontrolled railway crossings. Even the trucks that carry flammables, like the fuel trucks, they only have to stop at uncontrolled railway crossings. And having driven for 5 years now and driving on things like the perimeter, stopping at some of those controlled railroad crossings are very scary, especially in the winter when the snow is built up, because we have to be able to open our doors to listen for the train, but we also then sometimes are partially in the lane, and then technically that is our lane, but vehicles don't understand that, and they still try to pass beside us even though there isn't room. So being hit at a railroad crossing, I am a little bit more on edge about any crossing that I stop at.
And I should also make mention that, as you said, the emotional turmoil and the memory of your accident with the kids has stayed with you. We should mention there were no injuries.
Yes,
in that,
thankfully.
Just to say thankfully. So that's stressful for you. Seatbelts. Why do you think that wearing seatbelts is something you'd like to see, and that would make a difference for young riders?
So I got to watch the video of my crash, and I was so proud of all my students. They were sitting perfectly, which made compartmentalization work the way it's supposed to. And compartmentalization is those high seat backs. And to be completely honest, in small vehicle crashes against a school bus, head on or rear end, direct hit, school buses are beasts. They're going to take that vehicle and chew it up and spit it out, just like my bus did. But even then, in that video, I got to watch all of my students fly forward and hit the seat in front of them. Now, thinking of other bus crashes, even the one that we just had recently here in Manitoba, where the bus ended up flipping, you don't have compartmentalization anymore. In fact, a study done by Transport Canada in 2010 outright states it's not safe inside impacts or rollovers.
So So I just want to interject here. You're referring to sort of compartmentalization being with this high seat back, that even though the kids don't have seatbelts on, they're in a compartment of sorts. So if the collision or the force comes from behind or in front, you can imagine the kids will be locked into sort of that space. But
yes,
as you're alluding to, if the bus is hit in a different way, you're starting to think about the way the kids would move without seatbelts on. And you're citing Transport Canada here and saying a study in 2010 was talking about that compartmentalization wouldn't help in those cases. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about, you also believe, I understand, and you're active, as we mentioned, on social media, that that not enough people are aware of the rules around buses as well, and that is a safety issue.
It is amazing how many people, one, will drive through our reds, and two, will stop for our hazards. So technically speaking, we have two different sets of yellow flashing lights. We have the lower ones, which act exactly the same as any other vehicle on the road. It just, we're a hazard. I might be slowing down. I might be moving to the side of the road to do something. Just a general hazard. It's those lights on the top of the bus that really matter. And if you look at MPI's website of where they teach Class 5 drivers, all it says is blinking yellow lights means the bus is about to stop to discharge children. And it's not technically true.
Before you go this morning, what have you heard from officials in Manitoba about this issue and some of your calls to, in your view, make things safer for kids in school buses?
To be honest, I have had amazing working relationship with the leader of the opposition, Wayne Wasco. I'm really...
The interim leader of the Conservatives, yeah.
Yeah, so if you follow me on TikTok, that probably will surprise a lot of people. I clearly am left-leaning, but I'm really enjoying working with Wayne, not only because he's the MLA in my area, but also because during this really polarized time, it's nice to show that we can work together to get really good things happening.
And have you heard anything from government officials in Manitoba? Have you reached out directly at all?
No, technically I reached out to them about other issues and never got a response for those, so just didn't even try. I have tagged Wab in a bunch of my TikTok videos. If not, his team has seen those. I have no idea.
Yeah. Thank you very much for what you do. All school bus drivers, right? Out there every day, rain, shine, or sleet or snow. And thank you for outlining your concerns on CBC. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to have me on here. I'm really excited to share this passion and hopefully make school buses safer for everyone.
Jody Ruda is a school bus driver in Beausejour, and on TikTok, she's Jody the bus driver. Canada Safety Council responded to CBC saying school buses have an, quote, enviable safety record, citing that, quote, it is 16 times safer than traveling in a family car per passenger kilometre of travel, end quote. 8:23 a.m. right now. Well, let's turn to our medical column before the news here. There's a study that was published recently in the journal Nature. It used a coincidence that was created by a public health policy in Wales where researchers found that when older adults got a vaccine to protect against shingles, it added protection against developing dementia later in life. I spoke with Dr. Raj Bardwaj all about it.
Good morning, Marcy.
Quite a coincidence. Tell us a little bit more. What do the researchers do?
Yeah, so they took advantage of what's called a natural experiment. So what happened is that there was a policy decision in 2013 that divided Welsh people into two groups that really only had one difference. They either qualified for a free shingles vaccine or they didn't. So people who were born before September 2nd, 1933, they didn't qualify for free shingles vaccine. But if you were literally born a day later, so September 2nd, or after that, then you could get a free shingles vaccine. So that means that practically nobody in the group that was just a week or two too old to be eligible got vaccinated, but about 47% of the people who were born during the week on the younger side of the cutoff date got the vaccine. So then they were able to keep track of these two groups of the Welsh population who didn't already have dementia. They kept track of them for the next 7 years to see how many people in each group went on to develop dementia. And they found that people who got the shingles vaccine had about a 20% lower relative risk of developing dementia compared to people just a week or two older who didn't qualify for the vaccination, or the free vaccination at least. So when you look at that across an entire population, that means millions of people avoided developing dementia over the years. And they were also able to look at, all sorts of other stats about those two groups, just to tie it up in a bow, to make sure that, there weren't other potential differences like rates of smoking or rates of high blood pressure, diabetes, things like that. It turns out that the only meaningful difference was basically whether they got the shingles vaccine or not.
So interesting. Obviously, the vaccines to protect people against shingles. Just to remind folks, if they don't know, what exactly is shingles?
Yeah, so this is all about the virus that causes chickenpox. That virus is sneaky. So, it causes chickenpox when you get it. Your body fights it. You think, okay, done and dusted, we're good. But once that virus gets in you, it hides. It hides in the root of a nerve. And it can sit dormant in that root for decades until it gets reactivated for some reason. So shingles is what we call it when the virus that causes chickenpox reactivates. So when that happens, people get a painful, itchy rash along a stripe on one side of their body. So it's literally like a stripe of rash on your skin, kind of like a zebra stripe. The rash and the pain happen in that pattern because they come up along the nerve that the virus was hiding in, right? So it was hiding in the root, it comes up along that nerve. So there are antiviral medicines that we can give people to treat the virus reactivation, but to lower the risk of getting shingles in the first place, there have been vaccines available for decades. So the one that was used in Wales in 2013 when this natural experiment happened was made of a weakened live herpes zoster virus, the shingles virus or the chickenpox virus. But more recently, there's a new vaccine. It does not use live virus. And there's some indication that the newer vaccine gives a better immune response. So that means it protects people better against getting shingles. And there's some evidence that it might protect people better against getting dementia as well.
Okay, let's walk through that, because how would getting a shingles vaccine reduce the risk of dementia?
Yeah, right. That's the kicker, because they seem to be unrelated, but there's at least three theories. So first, maybe it has nothing to do with shingles itself. Maybe it has to do with the meds that we use to treat shingles. So for example, painkillers, because the shingles rash can be really painful. And a lot of the time things like Tylenol and Advil don't cut it. So we end up putting people with shingles on things that have opioids. So codeine, morphine, things like that. And maybe it's that actually increases the risk of developing dementia. So the researchers dug into that, into the medical files of all these folks, and they found that there's no evidence for that, actually. So that's probably not playing a role. Second theory, maybe it's just not letting that virus reactivate is what helps. Because we know that reactivation of the shingles virus, it's a virus that hides in your nerve and inflames and attacks a nerve. It directly damages nerves too. So maybe that's what's going on. It's not just directly damaging nerves in that stripe, along your skin. Maybe it's also doing something in your brain, and that's causing dementia. So the researchers looked at that. They found that people who had more episodes of shingles throughout their life also had a higher risk of developing dementia. And people who got the antiviral treatment for their shingles had a lower risk of developing dementia compared to people who didn't get antivirals. So, maybe that reactivation of the shingles virus, maybe that is what, sort of playing a role in terms of the increased risk of dementia. So that probably is a mechanism. And then that third theory is that maybe your immune system, your immune system's broader response to getting the shingles vaccine somehow causes more of sort of a general immune system cleanup, so to speak. So maybe, it helps to get rid of debris or damaged nerve cells in the brain, things like that, which might then, lower your risk of developing dementia as you age. And again, they looked at the stats from this study. There is some evidence for that. And one of the main clues is that in this study, women had a stronger protective effect from the shingles vaccine than men did. So, and we know that women tend to have a stronger immune response, so stronger response to vaccination than men, generally speaking. So again, maybe that's also playing a role.
What does it mean for people who are considering getting a shingles vaccine?
Yeah, I mean, it makes it sound, and it sounds to me, not just makes it sound, but there's evidence that that there's at least a double benefit to getting the shingles vaccine, right? So it lowers your risk of developing shingles. I mean, that's great because shingles is unpleasant, but it also seems to lower your risk of developing dementia in the long term. And like I said, from other studies, it looks like the newer shingles vaccine that's available now might have a bigger effect for both of those things compared to the older shingles vaccine that was used in Wales back in 2013 when the data for this study were collected. So it sure seems like a good idea, but here's the kicker. If you can afford it, right? So unfortunately, the vaccine is not always free. It can be as much as like $150 to $200 per dose, and you need 2 doses, And then Health Canada, in terms of what they say, they recommend it for adults 50 years or older, even if you've already had a bout of shingles. And they even recommend it for some adults younger than 50 in specific circumstances. So it's worth, talking to your doctor, see if you're eligible for free vaccine, or see if your benefits cover it.
There's some advocates here speaking to cost who are actually hoping that cost might be covered in the future, calling it a barrier to getting it for some. All right, Dr. Bardwaj, thank you.
My pleasure.
That is our medical column. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:31, it is 1 degree, and we'll see April showers or drizzles on and off throughout the day, a high of 7. April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month, and Winnipeg police are cracking down. Dedicated officers are camping out on street corners looking for drivers using their cell phones. They say even glancing at your phone at a stoplight is against the law. Luna Zuniga knows the potential costs of distracted driving. She is still struggling to recover from multiple fractures and injuries after being hit last year.
Thinking about all those drivers who continue to drive, they're able to go to work, they're able to go and hang out with friends, and again, I'm stuck looking out a window.
The driver who hit Zuniga was later charged with driving carelessly. Manitoba Public Insurance says distracted driving causes more fatalities in this province than impaired driving. A coalition of Manitoba environmental organizations says it is disappointed Manitoba is backing away from one of its climate change mitigation goals. Premier Rob Canoe now suggests Manitoba Hydro may not be able to wean itself off fossil fuels by 2035. Canoe says the province has to meet its own electricity needs. That includes building a new fuel-burning generating station that might run on fossil fuels. Laura Cameron is director at Manitoba's Climate Action Team.
It's troubling. We would like to see the province looking at ways to reduce peak demand. That thermal generating station is ultimately aimed at meeting that peak demand when we're in the coldest days of the winter. And, there are other ways that we can reduce the peak on the energy efficiency side.
The proposed new fuel-burning generating station is expected to cost Hydro $1.4 billion. Canada's federal election race is around the halfway point now. Liberal leader Mark Carney will be in Calgary before heading to Saskatoon today. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is set to speak at the First Nations Summit in Vancouver and then also make his way to Saskatoon. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is holding a press conference and rally in Sault Ste. Marie right now. U.S. stock futures are sinking again in pre-market trading as U.S. President Donald Trump's latest round of tariffs are in full effect now. Stock markets in Asia and Europe are down in the wake of those new tariffs, which include a 104% charge on Chinese imports. China has vowed to fight to the end, announcing it will raise its retaliatory tariff on the U.S. to 84% starting tomorrow. A Manitoba newspaper editor is using the power of persuasion to combat a deadly measles outbreak in the U.S. John Dewick is the editor of the Mennonite Post. It's a Low German periodical based in Steinbach with readers as far away as South America. Dewick paid a visit last month to the Mennonite community in Texas, where a measles outbreak is responsible for the deaths of 2 unvaccinated children. During that visit, he encouraged people to get their children vaccinated. Dewick says the key is not to push or be judgmental, but to listen.
If you are going to approach these communities
you have to understand them in a way that why they are making these decisions.
Closer to home, more than 600 measles cases have been reported in Ontario. Manitoba has had a total of 10 confirmed or probable cases so far this year. Excitement for the NHL playoffs is building in Winnipeg. Bringing the party back to downtown Winnipeg and the return of the whiteout street parties, details announced yesterday. And like fans, downtown businesses in Winnipeg hope it will be a long run. At Rudy's Eat and Drink, they expect to be packed on game days. General Manager Mackenzie Robb hopes the Jets will play all the way into patio season.
It's been electric just watching them all season. They've been doing so well. To see that come to a head and actually get that home advantage for the playoffs was always something we were looking forward to. And obviously the implications for our business are fantastic, and we're really excited to get things going.
Those Whiteout Street Party tickets are on sale starting April 15th, and the NHL says the puck drops on the postseason April 19th. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
In our news department today, thanks to Heather Wells, Megan Ketchison, Jody Nicolo, and Mike Arsenault contributing in the show this morning. Producer in unit, Donna Carrero, working in our unit this week. Nellie Gonzalez is the CA show's producer overall. Leif Larson is the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. Thanks to the associate producers who had items on today, Chidi Akuma, Marshall Hodgins, Sid Horshig, and Kalkadam Mulugeta. And big thanks to our live team, our technician Abby Adeyemi, YouTube producer and director Brad Lillies, and our show director Corey Funk, who's here with a last look at traffic.
Arlington approaching William, there was a multi-vehicle collision there blocking northbound lanes, but that has now been cleared.
All right, Abby.
Expect on and off showers and some drizzle throughout the day, and it stays cloudy and damp. We're going to see highs between 7 and 10 degrees.
All right, thanks, Abby. You have until noon to call the listener line with questions for candidates today, and we're looking for questions for those in candidates in Winnipeg West. Why? Well, that's the riding we're going to be in tomorrow. Our show's live on location. We're broadcasting from the Tim Hortons at 3890 Grant Avenue. So 3890 Grant Avenue, maybe we'll see you there from 6 to 8:30, or you can leave a question on the listener line if you can't make it in person. Our candidate interviews right now are between 7:30 and 8:30. We do have the incumbent Conservative candidate who is confirmed, and also the Liberal candidate so far. We've extended invitation to each and every one of the parties. Take care, be well, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and we will talk to you again tomorrow. The Current's coming up next on CBC.